या देवी सर्वभूतेषु विद्यारूपेण संस्थिता नमस्तस्ते 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 नमो नमः. Salutation to the goddess Saraswati, who bestows upon us the fearlessness of life in the form of knowledge and intelligence. Keeping up with our traditions, we begin today's program with lighting of lamp and invocation of goddess Saraswati. May I request Secretary, Department of Biotechnology, Dr. Rajesh S. Gokhale, Sri Chaitanya Murthy, Joint Secretary, DBT, Dr. Sanjay Mishra, Scientist S. DBT, Professor Anurag Agarwal, our Foundation Day speaker, Dr. Suchita Ninave, Scientist D, DBT, for lamp lightning, please. We also have amongst us students of RCB, Vaibhav Joshi, Rabi Shankar Ojha, Smriti Lekha Mukherjee, Chandrai Day, Kusuma Chandrasekhar, and Abhigya Shetri for Saraswati Vandana.
कुन्देन्दु तुषारहार धवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रावृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या कुन्देन्दुतुषारहारधवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रावृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना हे शारदे मां हे शारदे मां अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे मां हे शारदे मां हे शारदे मां अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे मां तू स्वर की देवी संगीत तुझसे हर शब्द तेरा है हर गीत तुझसे हम हैं अकेले हम हैं अधूरे तेरी शरण में हमें प्यार दे माँ हे शारदे माँ हे शारदे माँ अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे माँ मुनियों ने समझी है गुनियों ने जानी वेदों की भाषा पुराणों की वाणी हम भी तो समझे हम भी तो जाने विद्या का हमको अधिकार दे माँ हे शारदे माँ हे शारदे माँ अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे माँ हे शारदे माँ हे शारदे माँ अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे माँ
Thank you, Vaibhav and team, for a beautiful rendition.
Now may I request Dr. Suchita Ninave to kindly deliver the welcome address, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. I extend a warm welcome to the August gathering present here today on the occasion of this 30th Foundation Day of DBT. The department was established in 1986 to give a new impetus to the development in modern biology and biotechnology in India under the leadership of our founder secretary, Dr. S. Ramachandran. On this auspicious day, we recall the contributions of all our former secretaries and all our former officers from DBT to the progress made so far by this department. Some of our former colleagues are present here. I welcome them. During the last one decade, the department has promoted and accelerated the pace of development of biotechnology in the country at unprecedented rates. The department has made significant achievements in the growth and application of biotechnology in the broad areas of agriculture, healthcare, animal sciences, environment, and industry. There is always a mention on various forums that the contributions of the department in pandemic times have been momentous. The department is doing every conscious effort to make India globally competitive in biotech research, innovation, translation, entrepreneurship, and industrial growth. DBT's initiative regarding creation of Apex organization BRIC is an example of department's commitment to the goal of maximum governance and minimum government. Also, the recent initiative on biomanufacturing is gaining due acknowledgements in various national and international forums. Today's occasion is all very special. We had actually scheduled Genome India announcement, but due to some uh, urgent schedules of minister, we may have that event for tomorrow. Most probably, we will let you know about that. Support and guidance by Dr. Rajesh S. Gokhale, the Secretary, Department of Biotechnology, in leading many projects in meaningful conclusion has been exemplary. I welcome you, sir. On behalf of DBT, I welcome Dr. Anurag Agarwal, the renowned scientist, nationally and internationally. He has kindly accepted our invitation to deliver a foundation talk today. We look forward to have a nice and educating talk from you. On behalf of department, I extend warm welcome to the whole Genome India family, comprising of 20 national institutes led by coordinators Professor Narhari from ISC and Dr. Thangaraj from CCMB. They are all able today here. On behalf of DBT and whole DBT family, I extend my welcome to my colleague, Dr. Sanjay Mishra, all scientific officers from DBT, Shri Chaitanya Murthy, Joint Secretary in DBT, and his team from Administration and Establishment, Finance team, Shri Avatar Singh Sandhuji, CCA of DBT, and his team. I welcome all my colleagues from my department. I welcome all the scientists and directors of DBT institutes. We call them now in a group BRIC. All officials from BIRAC, ex-officials from the department, members of whole DBT family have gathered here to witness this scientifically auspicious occasion. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for not problem.
Thank you, ma'am. May I now solicit Dr. Rajesh S. Gokhale, Secretary DBT, for his address on DBT, delivering a better tomorrow. So please.
So, all presentations continue.
Good afternoon and namaskar to all of you on this wonderful occasion that we all here gathered for. It's lovely to see everybody in this auditorium. It's rather emotional for me to be over here in this auditorium every time I come, because this is where I started my careers actually for 20 years back. And so it's always very, very exciting to see each one of you being participative and making this function happen. And that's why what I've tried to do today, I thought, talk about how Department of Biotechnology has been delivering a lot of exciting journeys and exciting programs and exciting activities. And also, and how we can make it into a much better and a richer organization. And that's why, gave this title of the talk as Delivering a Better Tomorrow, actually. There's something wrong in this here, actually. I can as well give this talk as well. It doesn't matter. So I think let me first of all, just say that डाउनलोड में होगा ना.
आपको ये डिस्प्ले नहीं हो रहा है, यहाँ पे लिखा है, यहाँ पे खुल रहा था पहले।
ये तो वो ऊपर वाला है, उसको रहने दो, उसको छोड़ दो, वो किसके लिए है वो. Okay, there we are finally. So I think it's a wonderful occasion to be able to come and talk to you, all of you, on the 38th Department of Biotechnology Foundation Day. As many of you are already part of this activity in different formats, actually. I've been also part of this Department of Biotechnology as a scientist, one of the institution members of several committees, and I've been part of now directly as a part of Department of Biotechnology. So it's a wonderful occasion to celebrate. And I thought first of all, I should just say, congratulate to each one of you for all the wonderful things that you have done to make this as a successful enterprise of Government of India. And I think you all deserve a wonderful hand on this, actually. I mean, each one of you is really the hardcore, what I should say, strength and the pillar of what the department is all about. And we all are just the kind of makers of these kind of activities. So I also, thank my colleague Anurag Agarwal. And, I've known him for now several decades now, actually. And I think I just thought, how should I thank Anurag for a wonderful person that he is and a very smart guy. So I asked this guy to address me, actually. And what really happened was, it says, as an AI, I don't have personal interactions, actually. And that's where I think he wants to talk about from bots to robots today, as his title is, actually. Probably there human interface would also like to come into these kind of aspects. But it's increasingly interesting of how from bots for by bots or for bots, actually, I thought very interesting to look at how the future is going to emerge out, actually. And that's why I said, for a better tomorrow, how would it come? And this is a very nice cartoon that I always like to talk about. It says the good news is we are getting a lot of engagement on our AI generated content. And they're all very excited that this, the AI journey is now going on. And they say, what is the bad news? And the bad news is that it looks like most of the engagement is coming from an AI generated traffic, actually. So you can see that the machines and machines interactions can actually make human beings go crazy in its own ways of what is going to happen, actually. And therefore, one has to do this in a very, very remarkable way. You must have heard in recent times, that there are different AI-based problems in ChatGPT itself. Like yesterday, a couple of it was down for a while. It was giving all the gibberish kind of activities. So I think it's very important. But this technology is so powerful and so transformative that it's going to make enormous amount of dent into each one of us, what we tend to do, actually. And I think one should really try and understand this in a much better way so that we can make tremendously valuable contributions in future by using this activity. So let's come to Department of Biotechnology, actually. And I think what department has done amazingly well over the periods of time as an activity, and I hope it was designed in this way, because I don't know the historical perspective, but the leaders in the departments would think of it. I think the real challenge now is of how to network a complex activities that are required to make successful enterprises, actually. And you can see these are actually starting from innovation to technology to infrastructure to various startups, financial models, inclusion, social impact, sustainability. And in fact, the success is best when it is shared all across systems. And DBT has done this remarkably well. It's one of those funding agencies which actually funds everybody all around the country. It provides us mentorship. It provides ability to be able to carry out activity. What we need to now understand is that this is not just a funding agency, but it's an enterprise that actually funds innovation in the country and how well it has done. And so that is why you can look at it from 1986 onwards. This is a ladder that talks to you about it. It started with as an innovation in biotech sector. Very few countries at that period of time had a unique department dedicated to Department of Biotechnology, actually. And then it started focusing on cutting edge research, capacity building. Entrepreneurship was again a unique model to Department of Biotechnology. And I think now in 2024, we are talking about bioeconomy. Talking about can Department of Biotechnology drive the bioeconomy of this country such that it makes huge amount of impact to what we all call Viksit Bharat, actually. And I think that's been the real strength of department, that it's actually growing by using all the activities that have been catalyzed earlier to convert into a much bigger and better enterprise. You can see this is just an example of how harmonizing connections and fostering meaningful network was done. For example, very early on in India, we realized that to be able to build good funding agency, you require tremendous good amount of capacity and good amount of people all along the country. Now, this program, India Alliance, for example, now is almost completed 15 years. And you can see all across the country, there is a footprint of India Alliance fellows who are actually placed there in different institutions. And largely they are individuals. But I think now it's a strategy to build to advance discovery and innovation to improve health by actually collaborating in a way such that one can make it bigger and better, actually. The second aspect was enabling an ecosystem of industrial development and entrepreneurship, which is BIRAC in 2012. And you can see while on one case, it was capacity building and making best science happen in the country, enhance the value of it. The other was BIRAC when it was to set up an industrial ecosystem. And already there are 75 bio incubators and about almost more than 2,000 startups are directly incubated in these places. And about 4,000 connect through various other mechanisms, actually. Last year, or this year actually, last year we initiated this program actually of putting together a network of research institutions called Biotechnology Research Innovation Council. Again, a step that is actually dictated by government's mandate, but provides us an enormous capacity to create institutions and organizations that can have impact of what we like to call to enhance and implement the transformative power of S&T for benefit of all, actually. This is very important to understand, because while we know how to build capacity, we know how to do things, it's very difficult to imagine how S&T can directly transfer for the benefit of all, actually, in a direct mode, actually. And therefore, our institutions have to undergo transformation such that their capabilities are utilized in a very different mode, so that this actually does become an important activity. And to be able to do this, what department is planning to do, and this year that we will actually come up with very soon, actually, I think the advertisement BIRAC is already out on the website, what we call Mulankur bioenablers, actually. Mulankur is just a root that is just coming, shoot that is just coming out of the soil. And I think our plan is to have bio AI and biomanufacturing hubs all across the country, such that this catalyzes the innovations that happens in lab and different startups to the next level and be able to do these activities. So you can see it's always DBT is trying to go ahead, a step ahead in terms of what it requires to do, be able to catalyze activities. Now, many of you would think that this is very easy to do in the country, but believe me, the biotech growth that you have seen in last 3 to 5 years is absolutely astounding, and because of right things being placed all across the country during last 2 decades of time, 2 to 3 decades of time, actually. I mean, the bioeconomy last year actually registered about 29% of growth at CAGR, actually, which is like absolutely stunning in terms of it. Obviously, lots got to do with the health sector, but the health sector is actually primarily because driven by several of activities that are part and parcel of this. It's right now valued about 4% of the total GDP, actually. So if our GDP is about $4 trillion, we are somewhere about 4% of the GDP, actually. And what our ambition is by 2047 is about 10 to 15% of GDP should come from the bioeconomy perspective, actually. If you're able to do that, if you're able to convert that numbers, then only we'll be able to get what we call Viksit Bharat, actually, by 2047. And you can see various sectors that are growing in this area. You can see the industrial sector, which is about 43% of bioindustrial sector, obviously very largely driven by biofuels and various enzymes. The biopharma is the second largest, which is 36%. Bioagri is about 8%. Bio-IT industry is about 7%. And there's still COVID economy related activities still going on, actually. So you can imagine that there are immensely large number of activities that are going on, which actually makes this an exciting journey for next 2 decades also to look at. So this is a slide that I always try to go back and look at what are we saying when we say Viksit Bharat, actually. And while GDP is just one number, but this one number is sometimes provides quite a large interacting aspects of the things. And what this talks about is that it says that, why a developing country with fast growing economy finds it difficult to eventually break into the ranks of rich nation. And you can see India is somewhere here, which is obviously LMIC country, actually still lower middle class income country. What we are trying to look for is, can we reach in this quadrant, actually? And this quadrant is a staying rich or a becoming rich quadrant. How do we jump from this place to this place? And you can imagine that since 1960, out of 101 middle income economies, only 13 have become high income, actually. So it's not easy to do, believe me. It's not a trivial problem. It's a very complex problem. It's got a lot of different things that you need to do it well. But I believe that bioeconomy related sectors will actually play a tremendously important role, actually. And the government 100% believes at this stage that the only way to escape this trap is to look at the technologically empowered India, actually. So can we bring in more and more technology? Can you enable this? Can you do this activity? However, the other important aspect that we need to really understand is that the different trajectories are needed to leapfrog each quadrant, actually. Quadrant to this quadrant, then you require to do things in a certain way. Now, if you want to go from this quadrant to this quadrant, it's actually, you cannot follow the same paths of what you have done in the past. You have to kind of do away with some of the things. You have to pick up new areas and new challenges. And therefore, this is a very, very important trajectory that we need to bring about in next couple of years. So this is department's present strength, and I like to call it Navratnas actually. And there are 9 important directorates that actually handles the whole of the portfolio. And they're tremendously empowering, fantastic people actually. We've got a little bit distracted by CNA and other kind of activities last year in terms of our capacity able to release funding. But you can see these are 9, and look at what we have tried to do is actually the technology and capacity and partnership, emerging frontiers in biotechnology, global innovations, health interventions and equity, health and wellness. You can see obviously much focus is on the health component of the country and the other aspect of it. Information systems, biology and data monitoring analysis are also 2 very critical and very important divisions actually, directorates that are going to look at this aspect. And so it's a very solid team that actually works together to be able to put together what I like to call BioVision for Viksit Bharat actually. And the whole perspective, you can see all these sectors have to grow if the BioVision has to look at actually. Either it's biopharma, bioagri, bioindustrial, bioenergy, bioservices, biomedtech, and bioAI. And the whole challenge is, as the world looks at very complex problems of 21st century, is to look at from a consumptive manufacturing paradigm to the one based on regenerative principles. So even economic growth, people are focusing on how it can be regenerative in its own ways, such that one can create tremendous amount of value for future. Now, what have we done well, actually? And I think there are these kind of interesting aspects to look at. Time to capitalize on our own diversity. So can we find indigenous solutions for Viksit Bharat? If we continue to extrapolate what happens in West and try to use the same mechanism to be able to do it, you will always tremendously fail, actually. And for a country with the kind of amount of investment that we can bring in, therefore, it's very important to set up what I call different trajectory. So you look at either microbial diversity or look at microbiome related projects or the Pan-India Genome Project that was going to be launched today. We'll be launching it tomorrow, or the pregnancy cohort that has been going on in various activities for last 15 years. There are several activities going across these sectors. So these are tremendous opportunities for us to really make difference to be able to look at system. I thought I'll talk to you about a program that DBT initiated about 10, 12 years back and is going to be the game changer actually for it. And again, this is about lentivirus-based gene therapy for hemophilia. And in fact, the DBT's program was set out about 10, 12 years back. And that's why I said many of you who are in this group actually would have better history for it. But I think it's a 3rd generation SYN lentiviral mechanism, which is bioengineered to provide F8 designed for high expression. Now, the way this system works is that this actually, you first get rid of the HSC cells, do ex vivo transfection into HPC, convert them into monocyte and macrophages, and then transplant these back into the patient. In fact, as I speak, already more than 5 patients have been injected with this therapy. And there are no side effects right now. And I think the efficacy data still has to come up actually. But it's fantastic to look at that the biotech growth for the gene therapy, which is developed first in India, can in fact in next 1.5 to 2 years can go through this entire pipeline of its activities. And you can imagine this is something that we've always dreamt for, that can we cure genetic diseases that you are born with actually. And I think this is an opportunity for India and for DBT to make an impact into the larger perspective of it. And hemophilia is one such example, but there are so many hemoglobinopathies that are going to be completely coming out in various times. This is another wonderful example of how science brings in new concept. And I wanted to give you a few examples just to showcase the new technologies that many of you would not have heard about actually. Now, this is an example of a microbiome for a pregnant woman actually, trying to understand why preterm birth is such a big problem in our country actually. There are almost, very large number of women deliver very early on the child. And obviously the impact is very large because the epigenetic marks are different of the young children. And it creates obviously a different kind of children for the country's future. If you look at the microbiome from the vaginal of these term births and preterm birth women, you can actually clearly see that there are some subtle differences that you can find at the level of taxon in terms of women members actually. And what these THSTI's group has done now fantastically well is actually gone ahead and made probes, applied these probes on the paper strips, and these paper strips now can be used as a dipstick assays to identify the microbes that are present in the vaginal microbiome of a woman patient. So you can imagine the technologies are growing to a level where you can now start identifying bacteria using digital probes to be able to make valuable contributions in future to come. And I think some of these programs are really fantastic to look at how they are looking at. This is one of the drought-tolerant, high-yielding chickpea variety, came from NIPGR, recently was developed about 4 or 5 years back, but went through all the field trials and all, and called Advika. And this is now has been announced, released, and notification has been given in the central zone of India. Provides a high yielding, about 7% high yielding under dot stress. It's again a fantastic achievement for you to look at. There's another technology I thought I'll put together actually. Again, the science is the base of many of these technologies. We should not forget that actually. It's a real scientific breakthroughs that are leading to transformative technologies that are for the context of Indian population and for the world actually. There's another fantastic example of how anti-pesticide suit can be used for protecting farmers for pesticide-induced toxicity. Now you can imagine the pesticides that farmers spray all around their crops actually, in fact, they get themselves affected by it because acetylcholine esterases do get modified. Now what this group in INSTEM has done is, in fact, they have developed a coat on which they have stitched a new surface molecules on the surface of it, which actually inhibits the pesticides and insecticides reversibly, and therefore can be wore while you're doing it actually. So it's a wonderful way to protect yourself, to be able to manage and still spray with quite a bit of comfort actually. This company, as you can see, is spun off as well actually from INSTEM, and they're going to launch their product, which is actually washable, reusable, and affordable for farmers wearing suit actually. Finally, just one example in terms of bioenergy actually. This is a program where government has been focused very largely on 2G ethanol products actually. How do we bring in biofuels such that the bio waste can be converted into ethanol? And government has, as you must have already heard about, that government has already announced by 25-26, 20% of ethanol blending can be done by in various petrol and various aspects of things. So I think one of the good thing about that is that DBT has worked in this area through various centers for set up over the last 10 years. And this is ICGB's work now, where the enzymes are produced for end-to-end work to be able to break down the lignocellulose mass, to be able to convert sucrose into ethanol, to be able to also produce algal strains that can capture carbon from the industrial waste actually. And many of these you will see in next 1 or 2 years to start to the market actually in a way. Very gratifying, and I'm pretty much sure all of you would be happy to see this fantastic activities going around here actually. How do we sustain this momentum actually, and how do we really make sure that many of these activities we continue to do in a way such that we continue to solve futuristic problems? Now the problems are always very complex, and therefore they require coming together of people in various sectors to be able to look at. The present, one of the challenge really is of climate change, of unsustainable material consumption, of resource utilization, and the waste generation. And all of these are tremendously central to every industrial or every human activity that will happen in any part of the world. And one of the challenge for us is to really try and solve these problems by using biological systems. And many of you would agree that living systems can in fact be transformative to be able to recycle and carry out these activities in a flexible way. And to be able to do that, what department over the last 1 year did was large number of meetings all across the country to get together, bring people together in activities, various in different subsectors, large number of project division groups. All of them went around the country and primed people with these activities. And now you would have heard that in fact in the budget announcements as well, government has announced a scheme on biomanufacturing and biofoundry actually, which was driven by Department of Biotechnology. And these are the various sectors that we want high performance biomanufacturing to come in different forms. Either it's the chemical industry, which is about 70,000 or 80,000 oil to chemical molecules that are produced in the country, can we convert 10% of it over the next 3 years into biological routes? Or functional foods, or precision biotherapeutics, I showed you an example, or climate resilient agriculture, carbon capture of utilization, or also futuristic marine and space research activities with these kind of activities carrying out in one of these facets. I will just end with this few slides actually, and clearly one of the biggest worlds that are colliding from different space is one of the information science and the life sciences together actually. And this combination is going to be the most lethal combination in the way this is going to be transform all the variety of activities that are going to happen actually. And in fact, that's why we have our chief guest today to talk us all about this actually. I think he's the master of AI-driven health technologies, and he will guide us how to be able to change this course actually. But this is something we all have to be aware of, and we need to work towards this, of how to combine now strengths that are coming in one sector into the other sectors, so that we can then again grow leap bounds and grow into a very different trajectory altogether. So to be able to do this, one of the aspects that I've been talking about is we also need to change our model of funding actually. For example, if you really look at, largely we have done what I call spray and pray model actually. You spray the money and you pray that somebody else does well actually. And this is fantastic good for generating capacity building and brick and mortar and occasional breakthroughs, but it is very hard to do concentrated projects and programs. For example, the Genome India, which we were supposed to launch today, is one of a classical example, which is unlike spray and pray model actually. It's about defining teams, bringing people together, and to be able to do this actually. So I believe that the key drivers of innovation 2.0 is going to be what is called hunt and fund model of innovation. Demand-led research. You have demand and pull supply so that you are able to actually get activities to be able to work in these dimensions. You enable businesses to road test their technologies in the real world problem by making biomanufacturing activities, and also provide companies and various people access to technologies at a very early stage so that one can make this happen. Of course, DBT has been also easing out various reforms and various activities, including IP guidelines, approval of what is called biological research regulatory approval portal, single portal called BioRap IDs, and also taking up various activities that I won't talk about actually. The critical of all this is the HRD department work actually. Human capacity development and mechanisms to create better and better people is one of the key aspects of it. And inclusive, penetrating and expanding, that's been our mandate in the HRD ministry, and that's what we are actually going ahead with. So one last point that I really still like to talk about actually is with regard to how the student community needs to be altered, changed perception actually. So this is the discussion that is going around all the world, that what is the PhD training is fit for the purpose, what we are talking about. Is it okay right now to continue to have PhDs as a single dissertation, or we need to change? And this was actually, I got inspired by this editorial article in Nature actually, and I started thinking about it, how one can bring in. You can see what PhD students are inadequately prepared for cross-disciplinary work and large team characterizing of a cutting-edge science today. They are actually, you do a single dissertation work, you continue to tell them that you have your thesis, worry about your work, and then you suddenly tell them, no, collaborate actually. How is this mentality going to change actually? And how can we really get master's apprenticeship as a single dissertation to convert into a larger game that what is one looking at actually? So what we are doing now is launching this program called I3C Brick RCB, which is going to be already announced actually, called Ideate, Innovate, Immerse, and Collaborate actually for students. So it's a kind of a different model of how PhD should be done in the lab. And what does this mean? This means is that why pursue PhD if you ask a question? Often we say that it's a training ground for a challenging and rewarding career actually. And that's a perception in the given era today actually, because if you continue to do that, you actually truly believe that you are still learning. What I believe is actually we should transit the thought process in children's mind actually. We should say, can this be treated as your first job? because you've already had master's degree, you have already had bachelor's degree of high value from different places. Why can't we convert this as a job perspective? You do the job and you get the degrees actually as well. And therefore, I think by doing rigorous relevant research, why can't you be the social influencer actually? You influence society, because that's what organizations are supposed to do. How do we really do this? And to be able to do this, one of the ideas is actually to build programs, PhD projects as a large programs, and have various institutions come together and work in a way that this example is about. This is an example of augmenting symbiosis of sustainable agriculture. And if one wants to do this, one wants to get nitrogen to come to the plant without any cost in an eco-friendly way, how can we create systems and organizations that different people's strengths can be capitalized and be able to use together? And you can see we already listed PIs and projects. And this way we are going to define programs and projects. You end up doing your work, but look at the larger picture and solve the bigger problem to be able to look at it actually. And I think that's the way the future of the science would drive. And I think that's where DBT is already working towards getting it pieces together. The other strategy really is to expose these people to the challenges and problems looking at actually. So, it's time to adapt inside out strategy, the immersion program for doctoral students actually. Ideally, we work in our own confined labs and we focus on this. You need to go out and look at real world problems and challenges and get motivated, get excited, formulate questions, derive thoughts and ideas, come back and work together in a way such that it actually makes it more impactful. And I think the biggest challenge always, even though we think that the networking is becoming easy, I think it's still the importance of connections and collaborations at an early stage in careers will define how well you will end up doing in your lives and careers. And more complex programs you bring in, the more complexity it generates and more difficult it is for individuals to really work and be able to do these activities. So therefore, finally, actually, we've also initiated what we call people-centric movements, actually. Can we create movements that are people-centric, actually, so that everybody feels participatory in this? Everybody feels that we are part of this game. For example, this whole campus has not only faculties and students, but also have their children, their wives, all being part of this complete activity. And the whole idea would be, can we have zero waste life on each campuses of our country, across the country actually. And this kind of approaches are very, very powerful, because what you make is you derive new ideas and test beds for implementation models of various scientific and technological thought process that you're talking about actually. For example, you can use urban ecology context, you can look at AI data science from a bioeconomy perspective, from a technology perspective. And many of these ideas, once you derive and put it in younger people's mind, will actually create people who are far more important and interesting for the next future of life, actually. So this program was already launched very recently, actually, and we call it citizen-centric initiative. And the whole context is, can we lead by examples? Can we are the one who can take can we become participatory in a scientific goals as we move along into the perspective of net zero of the country, actually. I'm sure all of you would actually participate in these activities in different ways, and should happen in DBT as well, because it's the first. If you change yourself, you can expect others to change actually, and that's the real goal of this systems and organization. And the success thus hinges on civic advocacy, education about waste, and how to handle this actually. I think I'll stop here, but thank you again for all of you coming here, and I think again my very, very best wishes and congratulations to all of you.
Thank you, sir, for giving a new perspective on DBT. So we assure you that under your able leadership, we'll achieve new frontiers of success. Now, to mark the 38th Foundation Day celebration of the department, we have amongst us the stimulating presence of Professor Anurag Agarwal. Professor Agarwal is currently the Dean of Bioscience and Health Research, Trivedi School of Biosciences, Ashoka University, Sonipat, and former Director of Institute of Genomics and Integrated Biology and National Laboratory of CSIR India. He graduated from All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Delhi, and subsequently trained in internal medicine, pulmonary disease, and critical care at Baylor College of Medicine, Houston, USA, followed by PhD in physiology from Delhi University. His primary research areas are respiratory biology, and broader interests are in the new vision of health and healthcare seen through the lenses of emerging technologies. He serves on numerous national and international groups, most recently chairing the World Health Organization Technical Advisory Group for Viral Evaluation. He's also the fellow of Indian National Science Academies. He's recipient of several awards and allocates, including Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize in 2014, the Sun Pharma Foundation Award, and Sun Pharma Foundation Award in 2020, to name the few. So may I request you to please deliver the foundation lecture.
Thank you very much. And Rajesh has been very kind in introducing the topic already. The fact that we live in an age that's very rapidly changing. And given that I occupy a podium today that has been occupied by people far better than me, I thought what I would cover would be how the field is changed because of some fantastic efforts, primarily driven by young people, a few ideas that we have, and where we see the future going. But to start with something very simple that many of you who use GPT would have already seen, here is a very small poem that came out this morning when I used GPT-4. Now, as you read this, you realize that got some things absolutely spot on. And having known Rajesh for years, his ideas of scientific ambition, where he wants to take things, were very, very obvious in what you heard before. And of course, it speaks about a variety of other things, including the acronym, A Promise for a Better Tomorrow. But writing a poem, if you were to feed this in, you would not get the same poem every time. The way this works today with GPT, and I'll explain GPT a bit, is by prompting it. Now, if I prompted this differently, I would have got very, very different results. It can search the web. It can't find relevant information. So you have to have some sense of what the occasion is. It gets into very complex English words very fast with a focus on rhyme as opposed to simplicity. So you have to tell it. You are a modern poet that uses simple language. You have to let it know that you are going to be giving a foundation day lecture or something like that, for which the poem has to be suitable. Then you get the best output. So even if you have GPT-4, if you don't know what to tell it to do, you'll get pretty inferior results. And in fact, many students these days are still failing exams despite having access to GPT. One, of course, philosophical challenge at the end of this is, who is the author of this poem? Is it me or is it GPT-4? And that is a matter we will not solve today. But let's take this a step further. You know, GPT can speak nicely. Let's take something like mental health, where people are on chat to mental health counselors. And what Rob Morris did is he decided to switch the mental health counselor to GPT 3.5. And immediately what he saw, messages composed by AI, supervised by humans, were rated higher and were answered in half the time. But as soon as the human beings on the other end got to know that the messages were coming from an AI, immediately the satisfaction crashed. Because when an AI says, I completely understand how you feel, it's a little hard to believe. What exactly do they understand how you feel? It can come up with the words, but you know they don't mean it. You don't necessarily know that your doctor or psychologist means it, but it's more acceptable. But the point is the content of the conversation is already at a point where a mental health counselor could be replaced by GPT-5, 3.5, and the patient satisfaction went up as opposed to down. And of course, you all heard about crossing exams. In fact, I think the IIT JEEs took great pleasure in the fact that GPT could crack everything, but cracking the JEE was very, very tough. We took a lot of satisfaction in that. Medical exams, they're easy. They seem to be the easiest to crack. So I guess doctors should feel bad about it. But let's look at how high they score. The MedPalm 2. MedPalm 2 is a special version of Google's large language model, specifically trained with adversarial training, which means you increase the training on whatever you get wrong. And it's scoring around 86.5 on real patient scenarios of USMLE, which gives you a license to practice. There is a philosophical question of what a doctor is. The most pragmatic answer would be anybody who can clear the licensing exam. So assuming it can clear the licensing exam, and 86.5, by the way, is absolute the top. This person would probably top the USMLE. But let's take something different. Let's take 1,000 questions of real clinical scenarios in real life. They're all given as a question format. All relevant information is provided. And MedPalm 2, now we are speaking MedPalm 2. MedPalm 2 will give an answer and a real physician will give an answer. Both answers will be evaluated by other physicians on all these good traits and bad traits. Good traits would be consensus, comprehension, recall, reasoning. Bad traits could be inaccurate, irrelevant, harm. Who wins? MedPalm 2 actually wins on consensus, comprehension, recall, and reasoning. It is being asked to provide a reason for why it gave a particular recommendation. On the risks, except for inaccurate, irrelevant information, even if you look at harm, it actually does better than physicians. Physicians win over GPT in providing harmful answers. Now, I kind of know this for a fact. As part of maintaining my US license, I have to do something that is called continuously giving 30 questions every 3 months. Purely in the interest of academia, absolutely not because I was out of time. It was the last day and I had to give 30 answers. I decided to use innovative ways of feeding the questions into GPT-4 and seeing how it did. I normally score around 70% on these exams, and I'm a good exam taker. I scored 90% the last time I did it. And these are full-fledged case scenarios in critical care. So it's getting good. It's also getting multimodal. I can feed an ECG in it. I can feed an X-ray in it. But all these examples is of type where all the relevant information has already been provided. So you would say, well, we have one advantage. When the patient walks in, we know what to ask. That history, all that relevant information, we have to be there to provide it. As with everything else, and a lot of this work has been done by Vivek Natarajan's group at DeepMind in Google. They created something called AMI. So this is a paper on AMI, Articulate Medical Intelligence Explorer. And what's beautiful about AMI is AMI does not read any real patient records. All they did was they first searched the web for all possible diagnoses and cases. Then what they did, they broke down each of these hypothetical casings using known literature into formats. Presentation, most common complaints, things like this. Then they use another instance of MedPalm 2 to cross-check for inaccuracies. Then they simulated conversations that could occur between a doctor and a patient. Then they trained AMI on the simulated conversations, not having access to any real patient-doctor interaction until the time AMI could start having a conversational approach. If a person comes in and says, look, I have a headache, it will ask the next question. Based on the answer, it will ask the next question. And it is not being trained on real things, all simulated. At the end, they took 100 what we call objectively structured case exams, OSCE. Any doctors recognize OSCEs? And they took 100 OSCEs not only from one country, but from India, Canada, and UK. For each OSCE, they took a patient actor. Now this actor is trained to be a patient for that particular disease, and they put them on a text interchange. There's no physical interaction yet, but a doctor whom they don't know, it's an AI or a real doctor, will interact with the patient actor and they will provide all the answers. At the end, a real specialist doctor will review the conversation, look at the final disposition, look at escalation, and count them under diagnostic accuracy for the top 3 list of differential diagnosis, management plan, and correct recommendation for escalation, which means this person needs to be admitted, this person needs higher care. The patient actor would evaluate them for openness, honesty, and empathy, right? Nobody knows who the patient is, nobody knows who the AI is. One very quick look will tell you that the colors are very similar. So AI is pink. So AI and actual physicians, pink and blue, are very similar to each other. But I think even you would be surprised to know which one's the AI. Pink is actually the AI. On almost every single parameter, the AI was outperforming the physician, including for perceived openness and honesty and empathy. In fact, this particular bit on empathy has now been tested multiple times in multiple papers by multiple things. One could argue one of the reasons doctors seem to lack empathy in patient encounters is they're pressed for time. And AI is never pressed for time. So, and even if it is, it does not know that it's pressed for time. But the point is, a lot of what we take for granted about medicine is changing. And what I'm going to show you next is not changing only in medicine. So in one area, surgeons always feel very, very happy that all this is only for, specialties like diagnostics and management. Surgeons will not be touched. These are already the next generation of surgical robots. They have greater vision, greater mobility, very controllable. But people have already figured out you can now use language to control robots. But more importantly, the principles of task planning that come out of language models can create self-planning of sequences even in surgery. Now, this is something that is lost upon us. It is not just about language. Journal of Medicine AI was asked about when he knew they were on to something very big. He gave a very simple example. He said that in conventional AI, you can give 1 million examples of a 4-variable maths equation. Then you give a 5-variable maths equation. There is no way it can solve it because you can't jump from a 4-variable maths to a 5-variable maths simply by giving examples. But if when they realized that by only training on text, none of the text containing mathematics, the OpenAI, that version, that time called Da Vinci, was able to start solving 5-variable equations without ever having seen one, which basically meant in the structure of language lay logic. And it's not about language, it's about structure. What follows what? So sometimes we forget to think, what is GPT? Generative Pre-trained Transformer. A lot of this work of transformer comes from an Indian, Ashish Vaswani, an IIT Delhi graduate who was working for Google. And what they realized is in any sequence of information, if you can tokenize it in a format that you can figure out where the attention needs to lie for any two things in sequence, you can shorten the computational complexity from 1 by 1 to much more efficient. And these transformer architectures are suitable to anything almost that you can imagine. Everything I showed you is only the tip of the iceberg. So here is a beautiful cover from Cell I often like to use. Even if you take biology, Cell is about as biological a journal as one can have. I'm always reminded of a particular personal fiasco of mine when I joined biology for the first time in America. Everybody had a journal they had to read for a journal club. I thought, how big could a journal called Cell be? So rather than choosing a big medical journal, I chose Cell. The first issue of Cell I opened, I realized, that was a very, very bad choice. But in any case, in this particular issue of Cell, you can see a robot on whose hands the field is being lifted. Because ultimately, the future developments in biology also come from tech. We sometimes forget, more as physicians, less as biologists. We are the user of tools. We are very often not the builder of tools. And particularly in India, we forget this even more. We're not used to being the builder of the tools. The builder of the tools can reimagine from a higher vantage point where the field is going to go. And I think Dr. Gokhale's comment on PhD was a particular pertinent one here. It is a time for imaginative young people. Almost everything I talked about to you is being done young people in their 20s and 30s. Almost nobody who's doing this right now, this massive revolution, tends to be old. And you can see here that one can move from an English sentence to a protein sequence as a sentence. It really doesn't care. If you know there is structure in proteins, what you really mean is by part you can predict what comes next. It is just like a sentence. the basic component of tokenization, attention, and transformers still remains. Already people are working on this to predict brand new antimicrobial peptides. I'll show you maybe a bit on that later. But this is the type of work you have to imagine. Let me figure out if I'm wrong. Okay. But here is, okay, एक काम करते हैं. Let me do this. Let me use fine. But there is a very famous philosophical saying that every strength is a weakness. Not this, can a strength also be a weakness? It actually says every strength is a weakness in a different context. We know this particularly for surgeons. The very best surgeons are what we refer to, and this is an actual psychology word, anal retentive personalities. They must cross-check on everything 25 times before they can move away. The very best surgeons are always anal retentive. It also tends to bode very poorly for them in personal life. So you look at top surgeons, you look at their personal lives, you look at their successful outcomes, life gets interesting. Now we know the strength of generative architecture, right? The strength of generative architecture, it can find associations. It also makes it very prone to what we call hallucinations. Even if it finds nothing, it'll imagine something. It's one of those employees of yours who have a very hard time saying no, they'll just come up with something and say, okay. Some of you will recognize that. Now, here is a data set that we use as part of a large language model intersection with a company called My Healthcare. We have about 1.5 lakh patient records, and these are Indian doctors writing Indian notes. SOAP is a very typical protocol. And the first thing you know is you can get doctors to write notes, but you can't get them to put all the notes in the right place in the thing. So if there is a prescription category and they have to enter them one by one, they won't do it. It'll all be there typed in some other corner called others. It is a very typical note. And this is nice, right? This is about as good as you can get. This is a doctor's note on the medication for a patient. If all you want the AI to do is to extract from here and convert to a table like this, you will see it goes wrong. Not only does it go wrong, it comes up with medications that don't even exist. This person was on a Cap-Uprise, which is a vitamin D3 preparation, but the computer has decided to do both an uprise and a D-rise D3. It hasn't figured out the strength. It sometimes just does not work right. Now, if you take two LLMs from America, Medalpaca, Meditron, both of them are trained to read notes. They are pre-trained. Their accuracy in hallucination is just mind-blowingly bad. But now we live in a different world where Meta has released pre-trained models with 7 billion parameters and 13 billion parameters into the public source. You can take these models and train them on just 200 of those 1.5 lakh records. And if you were to take the 7 billion parameter model, you can get 92% accuracy and 0.9% hallucination within a few weeks of working on it. And this is work actually being done by undergrad students at Ashoka, because they have been very, very quick to jump on to these possibilities, play with these architectures. We haven't played yet with the 13 billion parameter model because the GPU memory limitations become important. But again, these are the type of things where DBT, many other places could provide the resources for people to play with these models on a national supercomputing resource. We, of course, are getting our own DGX, NVIDIA system. So we'll hopefully have more data on this. But 150 Indian records, pre-trained open source models from Meta, and this is the performance jump that you get. And existing commercial models from West will not do it because we write things differently. So the beauty of this entire area is that, and imagine this in different languages. Imagine converting this to voice. Enormous opportunity. But let me also point out that, and again, I'm sticking more to medicine right now, there are massive challenges. And challenges can be at multiple levels, including in the data itself. And one thing I must point out is that fundamental things like respect for autonomy, privacy, and ethics, what a computer got to do with it? You can instruct GPT-4 or GPT-3 not to make funny cartoons of global leaders or religious leaders and things like this. You can say, these areas are no-go, don't do this. It always has to be a human instructing it, case by case, and still trouble occurs. An unbiased collection of biased data cannot remove bias. You can do unbiased collection all you want. If your fundamental data is biased, there is a problem. I'll give you a very, very important example that is relevant for India. They say in America that your only true friend for your health is your insurance company. I always qualify that by insurance company that is planning to pay. If the insurance company is not planning to pay, it is not your friend. But if it is planning to pay, it is absolutely your friend. It works. It wants even more than your family that you should stay in good health. So what they do in America is they have an algorithm that calculates your risk score for escalation of care. If you become very sick, it's going to cost them a huge amount of money. So giving you a little bit of extra care early saves them a lot of money. And this algorithm is given evenly by them. This graph on the y-axis is the number of medical problems you have. On the x-axis is the score the algorithm gives you. The dark line are black people, the yellow line are white people, and one quick glance will tell you that black people in America seem to be requiring to get more medical problems to get exactly the same score. Why? Do we think the programmer was biased? Very unlikely. The color of money is the same for an insurance company. They could not care less. They're going to have to pay out. But if you think about what you already know about India, the answer will make sense. Poor people are almost always sicker for the same stage of care. If you go to an AIMS OPD and you see a woman from a village with breast cancer, it'll be a fungating mass before she is seen, while a rich person might be being seen for a simple nodule, which basically means that an AI that assumes the world is fair will make these mistakes. It will assume that different people at the same level of care are the same when they aren't. It will create algorithms on that similarity when it shouldn't. And all that will occur is wrong algorithms. Imagine an AI system like this running on Indian data coming out of Ayushman or other private data. Imagine the havoc it would create if we were not understanding what is happening behind the scenes. So we need to invest not only into AI people, but people of the domain who understand AI. And that's something we need to do very carefully. This entire business of medicine transforming AI or AI transforming medicine is not new. There's a paper from NEJM in 1970. In the last line, they already were thinking in 1970 that computers will replace doctors. Hasn't happened in 50 years, probably won't happen anytime soon again. But what doctors do and what computers do and how the two work with each other will change. Same for biologists. And if you track the history of this entire field, this is Gary Kasparov, very famous cover. This is Deep Blue 2. They are talking about the brain's last chance, right? Fight with the machine for chess supremacy. We all know what happened. Gary lost. Even in his book, Deep Learning, he talks about the fact that they were all against him. That's why he lost. But he says he would have lost definitely in a few more years. The second cover is about 20 years later for a game called Go. Go is so complicated that unlike chess, you can't even describe your strategy. It's supposed to be like art. You just make the best move that you feel. People thought even after chess was lost, computers would not beat humans in the game of Go. Using the nascent field of deep learning in those days, the machine bet the number 2 player in the world at that time quite comprehensively. And very interestingly, the move that led to the second match being lost by the human was a move that all the experts criticized the machine for, saying this move makes no sense. That's the move that eventually won the game. Since then, human-machine partnerships do even better than machines or humans alone, but the entire way in which we approach the field of Go has changed. What has happened to chess meanwhile? This is the program called AlphaZero. AlphaZero was born with only the rules of chess, never given the chance to play anybody than itself. After 4 hours of self-training, and by now you don't even count playing against humans, because Stockfish will beat every grandmaster. After 4 hours of self-training, AlphaZero bet Stockfish the most chess design program in the world with billions of games under its experience, 64-36-0. Those of you who play chess know how ridiculous that score line is. Not a single loss. So whatever is rule-bound and constrained will fall in the domain of AI. There are better things for humans to do that humans will be better at. Take protein folding. We have had entire groups, scientist groups, dedicated to protein folding. There is a competition called CASP. You take solid protein structures which have not been publicly released. You get teams to compete on it. And then you look at what the winningest team in the world is. For multiple years now, there is no number 2, 3, there is no number 1 competition left. AlphaFold wins CASP. Protein folding is now done better by AI, but that is not the question. The question is, can a human plus AI outperform? Only a human can sometimes see the value in what you will do with a folded protein. And these things still remain very much human. But of course, Demis Hassabis, who actually started deep learning, he started by building deep learning for video games. And from video games, his company got bought over by Google, became Google DeepMind. From here, he went to AlphaGo, AlphaZero. From there, he went to AlphaFold. Now he's the head of a new company of the parent of Google, Alphabet, called Isomorphic Labs. And Isomorphic Labs truly believes that just as mathematics turned out to be the description language for physics, AI will turn out to be the right method for understanding biology. And its logic is biology is too complex, seen at the larger scale, to truly be suitable for piecemeal understanding by individual human minds. AI will provide the larger framework, humans will provide the local illumination. And I think that's something worth considering as you imagine the future. This is a new paper from the Stokes lab that had previously discovered halicin in 2020. It's a new antibiotic for Acinetobacter baumannii. It's one of those very, very drug-resistant bacteria. Look at how specific it is. It only affects Acinetobacter baumannii. It does not affect either Staph aureus or E. coli. E. coli is a classical gram-negative, Staph aureus classical gram-positive. Only Acinetobacter is being killed by this particular antibiotic. You can imagine new levels of specificity coming out of data. And data collected at gigantic scale. And but I'm again come down to what Dr. Gokhale said. These will not be the works of individual small labs. These will be the works of entire institutions working together. And this is a very critical part. If we don't get together to do these things at scale, it'll be a losing battle from here on. I'm going to start winding up by talking about a few things that are of concern and promise. This is the oldest twin. Now, this is NASA. And Houston, we have a problem, is a very well-known cry when your shuttle 200,000 miles away starts failing. Many kinds of signals start coming, and you want to know what to do. You go back to the twin that you have inside NASA. You play with it. You figure out what those signals would mean. You simulate what you can do to make it work, because you only have one chance with those people far away. And you get it right. Now, this is obviously not a true digital twin, right? A true digital twin has to be connected. The information must flow in real time. Here it is still two different, one mock-up, one real thing, one in space, one at NASA, people playing, connecting. But a jet engine today has a digital twin. The cost of bringing down a jet for repair is so high that it knows if it flew through very cold air or through a sandstorm over the Middle East and differentially knows. The only example in closer life is the Porsche. The Taycan, one of their top sports models, has a virtual twin of its suspension. So it knows when the suspension needs to go in for repair before it actually breaks down. These are very, very finicky sports cars. I always have a laugh in my mind imagining what will happen if it came out of the showroom in Delhi and drove over one of the big potholes and a big speed breaker in Gurgaon. Probably as you drive out of the showroom, the digital twin will come up and say, time to go back to the showroom for repair. But one wonders, can you have a digital twin in health? For the heart, you can. There are some very interesting interventions in which you have to reprogram the heart for certain arrhythmias. They can kill you, they can also make you better. Cardiologists will not like me for saying this, but the heart is the simplest organ in the body. It is just electrical and mechanical. Both are measurable through implantable devices, and you can simulate an entire heart in silico. So German companies now allow you to plan this intervention in silico, see if your intervention as planned will give to a fatal arrhythmia killing the patient, allowing the digital patient to be revived, try the next version until you get it right in silico, then you do it on the human being. This is where we are going in medicine. Obviously, the problem is you have to collect a huge amount of data. And collecting a huge amount of data, a huge amount of private data and personal data will be justified by 100 different means. And here is one example from Dilbert, my favorite cartoon. And I'll leave it at the end. Sure, we'll go with that because you care about our health. That's why you collect the data. We can go with that, but we can also choose not to trust it completely. So one of the things I had the privilege of leading in the last few years was a Lancet Commission for Governing Health Futures, thinking about new data ecosystems that will make this possible. These are as relevant to medicine as they are to biology. Every genome that you collect, and today we are here to celebrate the first 10,000 genomes, is not really de-identifiable. If you just knew the community it is from, and this is something I must point out in case you didn't know this. If you look at how much an Indian from one community represents another member of that community, it is far more than in many others. Thangraj is right here. His very famous work published on the cover page of Nature Genetics created an index called Identity by Descent, showing that when we talk about genetic disease in communities like Finns, in Ashkenazi Jews, we have communities within India that are 10 times more interrelated. I always use a much simpler index. In my community, because it's one of the ones Thangraj's paper identified, so I can speak about Baniyas easily. If I go to Agra to attend a marriage, I can choose to attend from the groom side or the bride side. It really doesn't matter. There's a very good chance I know both sides. In my wife's community of Punjabi Jains, it's even worse. I mean, they always know both sides. When you can enter a marriage from both sides, you know the parents are related to some degree. And what Thangraj's work very elegantly shows mathematically should have been intuitively known to us from our community architectures. So genomes are not private and have implications to communities. Legislative means are the only important things. Somebody knowing that you're high risk for X disease, does it matter if all healthcare is free and easily available? No, it doesn't. Does it matter if you're going to have to buy insurance? Of course it does. So these things are bigger things. It was a very, very diverse commission. You'll recognize many of the people over here. India has one of the best visions in the world in terms of a national scale digital health. Most importantly, India has the idea of digital public goods. Digital public goods that were used to stimulate commerce are now being used to stimulate health. This type of digital public goods vision, where data itself becomes a digital public good, can spur the development of AI well beyond any possibilities elsewhere. But it's a very careful balance. At what point are you preserving privacy and preserving the rights of people? At what point are you stimulating innovation? And this idea of solidarity is particularly important. And the other thing we have to recognize in India are these divides. Ultimately, whatever you try to do with AI to transform the health system has to work there and also has to work here. Trying to imagine only for here won't work. Trying to imagine only there will work, but will not let you lead the space when it comes to global competition. So you can't exclusively focus on this and forget that this might be where the cutting edge work is happening for global leadership, the high value bioeconomy, bio AI that Dr. Gokhale was talking about. But if you forget this, you will never get the public support you require to make anything happen. So these are the challenges that India faces. These are the type of things that we are imagining at Ashoka, at the Koita Center for Digital Health. But most importantly, what I want you to show, we think of health, data, AI, LM as a horizontal. It's no longer a vertical. Every sphere of what you do will be cross-cut by these things. Every new student of biology, every person doing PhD must have some exposures to these things. Because my wife's a radiologist, so she often gives this radiologist versus AI talk. In the end, they conclude AI will not replace radiologist. Radiologists who use AI will replace radiologists who don't. The same thing will be true for biologists. So that is the direction we need to go. If future generations are being trained at this great institute, all kinds of interesting things can be done. For example, Dipendranath Basu, who is a Simons Foundation Fellow at Ashoka, is trying to use these kind of language models using evolutionary data sets for antimicrobial peptides to discover brand new AMPs. Mayank Garg is trying to solve a very obvious problem in healthcare. What we call informed consent is only consent. There is no information. There is just a form. At the end of the form, you sign something. There is no real information. They will not stand up in courts of laws when things go bad. Many problems, many different solutions, enough scope for many people to work on variety of areas. But all I would try to tell you is one thing never changes. Tools keep on changing. Science keeps on changing. But asking a good question remains the bedrock of good science. That never changes. So the more things change, the more they remain the same. And on that note, thank you all.
Yeah. So if we have some questions from the audience.
It's like a guide about IBM Watson healthcare. Do you think it's a failed enterprise in the context where
Wonderful question.
at the interface of human intelligence and artificial intelligence? There's lots of debate in Brookings, Watson.
No, there's a wonderful case study in Harvard Business Review as well as in other places. Let's get to the background of what Watson did well. What made Watson famous was the game of Jeopardy. In the game of Jeopardy, a typical question would be, what is the hat, my dear Watson? Now, the way this question would be broken down by a human, my dear Watson is equal to Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes always wears a hat. The hat is called Deerstalker. What is Deerstalker? Now, a computer, the challenge was never in finding out what was the hat worn by Sherlock Holmes. The challenge was in understanding the question, my dear Watson, referring to Sherlock Holmes. So when Watson started in the game of Jeopardy, a very, very famous game, it broke down two different AIs. The first AI interpreted the question, breaking the question down into multiple possible meanings. And the second AI found the answer to each question and gave a score. If it found its confidence level was not high enough, it did not answer, thereby not risking any negative marks. But when it was sure it was rarely wrong. Also, sometimes it made very, very stupid answers. Like there was about an airport in a US city, it gave the answer Toronto. Nobody could understand how the hell can it answer Toronto when Toronto is not even in America. But the point is it won the game by selectively knowing what to answer with what confidence. Trouble with medicine, and then they became ambitious. They bought a huge amount of data and opened Watson for oncology, right? That's what you're referring to. Now, if you look at the last years of Watson for oncology, they were using humans to work behind the scenes. The answers were not coming out from Watson. There were areas where Watson was superior to humans, where genomic data was provided. They had examples where they discovered cancers that no human was thinking of by looking at the genome sequence. But they also had examples where completely wrong, inappropriate therapies. In India, only place that used Watson for oncology was Manipal. They gave answers completely suitable to Memorial Sloan Kettering, but not to Manipal. You can be technically accurate, but not fit for purpose. Fit for purpose is difficult for an AI to understand because it doesn't know purpose. Would you give different advice to people from very different socioeconomic background? In India, the doctor would say, oh, obviously. In America, they won't. So these are the reasons why it failed, and these are the reasons it didn't generalize. Sorry for a long answer, but this is an important topic.
Anurag, nice talk. You gave example of already trained LLM, retrained with Indian data. It gave excellent results. But that Google's latest clinical LLM, they didn't release it because they thought So
This-
what's your views
this-
how this would be handled for?
I think this is a matter of great importance, what you said. There are only two publicly available retrainable LLMs. One is by Mistral AI called Mixtral, and the other is Llama by Meta. Apart from these two, nobody else is releasing their LLMs into the public domain. And I think it is very critical for the government to put its funding onto public open science and open LLMs. Because without it, you can't have explainability. So the only two right now are Mixtral by Mistral AI and Llama by, and these are the only ones. You can take it off the shelf and you can customize it, you can examine it. Nothing else you can do. Google is not releasing. OpenAI has refused to release. Many other proprietary ones are coming. And I think this is where we take a stance, because the total amount of computing power required to create any one of these models doesn't exist even with the government. Forget about any of our institutions. So which means we support the companies that do open science and promote Indian science in using it. That's my view on it. But I would love to hear your views too later, perhaps.
Excellent talk. It was nice to listen everything for several years. So it's wonderful to know genome sequence-based diagnostic, what we have talked about that. That's what we visualized when the human genome program was initiated earlier. But now AI has come now in that. How much accurate or what is the false positive, negative, that is really important for the practical vision. How to diagnose rare diseases and all those things.
So let's divide now AI into two parts. One part that I talked about today, which is generative based on models, which can do things beyond what is known, and conventional AI, which is based on matching things to what is known. Now, if you were to take a conventional AI and try to match it to mutations of known effectiveness, there is no scope for hallucination, right? It can't hallucinate because it is simply doing a match to what a human already knows. It is simply doing what a doctor does with far greater efficiency. In fact, these are the type of things the doctor will click the button, see what comes up. The other one, and now let's take a very precise example. Let's take a typical protein sequence for a drug target protein, and you're trying to answer whether this new drug will bind to it or not. And nobody knows the structure of that protein at all. AlphaFold already can, based on multiple things known and based on individual segments, come up with a possible structural solution, and drug companies are doing it. This is well beyond the usual genomics. If you have a mutated version of the protein and you are screening a drug library for it, you don't have a structure for it, AlphaFold can be used to do it. Recently, we had a discussion, for example, with Dilip Shangvi, the founder of Sun Pharma. And they are thinking of all these things, except that for all these things, they go to foreign academia. Simply because the size of our enterprise is too small. So I think what you're saying is very important. As genomics comes, mutation gets known. A mutation may not even be a rare disease. It might be something with a 10% prevalence, which is not causing anything lethal, just creating a bad outcome. So think of it as a genetic risk score. But it is a suitable target for drug discovery. Take PCSK9, right? I mean, these things will matter, and we need to do this. And I think this is the best way forward, but under human guidance. One variation to this is what is called foundation models. Now, in foundation models, what you do is you provide a foundation of the real world knowledge and you put generative on top of it. Even something as simple, if you try this out, if in two different browsers, you were to open two GPT-4s, ask a question on the first browser, get the answer on a second browser, not a different window of the same. Put in this answer and check it for accuracy. You will get beautiful increase in the quality of answers. So in many ways, it's multiple passes like everybody else. And then you have to ask yourself, given that you have more manpower, how do you want to optimize the AI manpower interface?
I think excellent talk. There seem to be two challenges involved here. One is the explainability of these models.
Yes.
You're really not clear. That's a difficult problem to solve here. Second problem seems to be computational resources. For example, you are not able to train on one of the large language models. So when do you think you will be able to confidently use these tools as a part of healthcare systems?
Let me start with the second one first. The second one is about computational infrastructure. So at least in theory, and Rajesh actually might know better, Irawat was supposed to be made available by MIT some time ago, right? I think Irawat is already on board. So perhaps these very high power computing procured by the Department of Information Technology, made available to researchers, will come in that direction. Currently, the shortages are so severe that we just ordered an H100 NVIDIA platform, 4 chips only. These things are $500,000 to $1 million and are 6 months to 12 months waiting time. Because of connectivity of our founders in the private world, we might get it in 3 months. But the chips are on so much back supply that it's hard to get. So how will India get? Only if the government negotiates directly with the suppliers of these chips to provide these things at scale to specific departments and then are made available to others. That's the only way I see this being solved. If you go with one generation lower chips like A100, you can buy them off the shelf even now. They're not as good, but they will serve the purpose. Then there are new language architectures like Rust, which are very configurable with ordinary GPU, CPU configurations if you got young people to play. And I'll give you an actual example of some of the work I showed was done by a 5th semester economics major who won the NeurIPS challenge, which is a global AI conference, and got a speaking slot. Young kids can do great stuff. So that's something to keep in mind. Your first question is much harder. What is the meaning of the word explainable itself, right? Even if you were to ask a doctor to explain many of the things we do, we can't always fully explain it. In fact, we can't even tell you how aspirin works fully, to be very honest. What we might be satisfied with is reproducibility in diverse data with accuracy. True explainability of an AI can at most go to a cluster in a mathematical space and a pattern. That's about all it does. Many people show explainability by something called heat maps. Heat maps is an activation map. It simply shows you what the AI, in fact, I had it on all the slides. The activation maps tell you what the AI is seeing. It can't tell you what it sees. And in fact, if you rely upon the human to be certain that is seeing something worthwhile, you might actually undersell AI. It might be able to use patterns that humans aren't capable of. And I'll give you one example of that. You have seen the Google DeepMind retinopathy picture, right? It can tell you the gender of the person from a snapshot of the retina. Now, ophthalmologists might laugh that, we can tell the gender before we look into the eyes. But the reality is you can put as many images as you want of people's retinas. No human ophthalmologist can tell you the gender of the person. But the AI can with 99.6% accuracy. It will even map that area for you with activation maps. I see this, but you look at it, it makes no sense. I would not want to limit AI with the conventional sense of explainability, but I would suggest building rigorous tests with very diverse data to make sure it will work. And of course, based on the level of risk. I'm going to make life or death decisions. Well, I want a higher level of proof. I'm going to decide to, send home and see him today or tomorrow, different level of decision. Okay. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, sir, for the captivating and riveting talk. May I request Secretary DBT to kindly felicitate our Foundation Day lecture speaker with a token of appreciation. So moving now to the fun part, we have cultural activities scheduled up, and Shri Arvind Paplialji and Ms. Malvika will take you through. I request dignitaries on the dais to please take their seats in the audience.
Bolong kok khulne ke liye pale aro para kale balo tha balo
Hello, hello. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an announcement to make. Due to some unforeseen circumstances, Mantri ji is unable to travel to Delhi today, or probably he won't be able to make it to NII today. So the Genome India announcement will be happening tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. Thank you. Here itself, only in this auditorium. Thank you.
chip chip chip
देर हो गया है बहुत देर हो गई मैं वैसे तो मैं आपको बुला दूंगी ना ठीक है कुछ केक करवा Oh, flower.
3 मिनट में नाम बोलूंगा तब आप बोलेंगे। हाँ हाँ हाँ, बस मैं बोलने ही वाला गेट को। हाँ जैव प्रौद्योगिकी विभाग के समस्त आदरणीय अधिकारीगण एवं मेरे सहकर्मियों और उससे भी ज़्यादा बड़े जो हमारे सभी जो पुराने हमारे अधिकारीगण हैं, जो कि जिन्होंने हमको हमारा मार्ग प्रशस्त कराया, जिन्होंने हमारा मार्गदर्शन किया, जो हम आज इस मुकाम पे पहुंचे हैं, जो आज की ये सफलता है, ये मात्र आज के अधिकारियों की सफलता ना माने। इस पर इसकी जो नींव रखी गई है वो मेरे सामने जो सम्माननीय अधिकारीगण हैं, जिनके साथ की मेरा कहना चाहिए व्यक्तिगत संबंध रहा है। डॉक्टर सुचिता निनावे तो आज भी हैं और शुरुआत भी मैंने उनके साथ काम करके की। डॉक्टर टी.एस. राव साहब हो गए, डॉक्टर गोविंदवार जी हो गए, डॉक्टर वी.पी. गुप्ता जी हो गए, डॉक्टर हमीदा आब्दी मैम, और भी बहुत ऐसे चेहरे हैं जिनको कि देखकर डॉक्टर सुमन गोविल मैम हैं, राज लक्ष्मी मैम हैं, डॉक्टर मीनाक्षी मुंशी जी। तो मैं समझता हूं कि जितने भी लोगों को मैं देख रहा हूं, हालांकि मैं अपने जो दिल के बहुत ही करीब डॉक्टर राजेश कपूर जी को मिस कर रहा हूं, लेकिन यहाँ पे जितने भी हैं पुराने अधिकारी, वो सभी एक तरह से हमारे भाग्य निर्माता हैं और हमारे इस विभाग को जिन्होंने की एक पुख्ता नींव दी है, जिस पर कि हम आज यहाँ पर बहुत ही सफलतापूर्वक और प्रसन्नतापूर्वक आज ये 38वां स्थापना दिवस का भव्य आयोजन करने जा रहे हैं। इसका सब कुछ श्रेय मैं समझता हूं जो आज की पीढ़ी है और जो भावी पीढ़ी है, होने वाली जो तैयार होने जा रही है, उस सब के साथ साथ जो जिसने नींव रखी है, मैं सर्वप्रथम उनको तहे दिल नमस्कार करता हूं और उनका बहुत बहुत अभिनंदन करता हूं। सभी अपने साथियों का, सभी अधिकारीगण का हार्दिक अभिनंदन करते हुए मैं रिद्धि सिद्धि विनायक गौरी पुत्र गणेश जी का आवाहन कर लूंगा 4 पंक्तियों के द्वारा, जिससे कि हमारा जो ये अभी तक का सफर है, ये तो बहुत ही रोमांचक रहा है। आगे भी हमें हर रोज नित नई सफलताएं हमको मिलें और हम सफलता के नए आयाम, हम सफलता के नए कीर्तिमान स्थापित करते रहें। सर्वप्रथम गौरी पुत्र गणेश का आवाहन। ओम वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। ओम। आपने देखा होगा हमारे देश में जो सांस्कृतिक विरासत है वो बहुत ही जबरदस्त है, बहुत जिसे कहना चाहिए उस अप्रतिम सांस्कृतिक विरासत है, उसका कोई सानी नहीं पूरे विश्व में, जिस कारण से कि हमें विश्व गुरु की भी उपाधि दी गई। आज उसी सांस्कृतिक विरासत को हम यहाँ समेटे हुए यहाँ एक सांस्कृतिक कार्यक्रम का आयोजन करने जा रहे हैं। असल में सांस्कृतिक कार्यक्रम है क्या? कल्चरल प्रोग्राम एक्चुअली है क्या? कल्चरल प्रोग्राम है जो हमारी रिच कल्चरल हेरिटेज है, रिच कल्चरल हेरिटेज ड्रिवन जो वर्च्यूज हैं, उनको एक्चुअली एक वे टू इनकलकेट दोज वर्च्यूज इन द फ्यूचर जनरेशंस, दैट्स कॉल्ड कल्चरल प्रोग्राम। तो उस कल्चरल प्रोग्राम के शुरुआत में हम समझते हैं जो हमारे 16 कला परिपूर्ण भगवान श्री कृष्ण, जो कि प्रेम के अवतार माने गए, उनके द्वारा जो एक बिल्कुल शुद्ध प्रेम, जो सच्चा प्रेम स्थापित किया गया, उस प्रेम को कई वर्षों से, मतलब many decades, that true love and that pure love actually that can't be described in just words or in some dance form. तो उसका जो भाव भंगिमाएं हैं, उसके जो शब्द हैं, उन दोनों को जोड़कर जो बना वो बन गया डांडिया। तो मैं सर्वप्रथम इसी जो सच्चा प्रेम है, जो बिल्कुल शुद्ध प्रेम है, उसको यहाँ पर आपके सामने प्रदर्शित करने के लिए अपने विभाग के 4 अपने जो होनहार हमारे कर्मचारी हैं, उनको मैं आमंत्रित करना चाहता हूं। और कहा भी गया है कि प्रेम के मामले में तो कहा भी गया है कि पोथी पढ़ पढ़ जग मुआ, पंडित भया न कोय, ढाई आखर प्रेम का, पंडित भया सो होए। तो इसलिए उसी प्रेम को यहाँ पर भाव भंगिमाओं और शब्दों द्वारा एक नृत्य शैली में प्रस्तुत करने के लिए मैं आमंत्रित करने जा रहा हूं श्रीमती रश्मि, श्रीमती राखी, श्रीमती मनीषा और श्रीमती लक्ष्मी को।
होई गई रात तने भूलो बदी बात प्रेमनिया मौसम छे अब आओ मेरे पास रह जाओ मेरे साथ प्रेमनिया मौसम छे होई गई रात तने भूलो बदी बात प्रेमनिया मौसम छे अब आओ मेरे पास रह जाओ मेरे साथ प्रेमनिया मौसम छे मिल जाए मुझको अगर साथ तेरा तो भूलूं मैं सारा जहां गाड़ा तारा छबीला तारा रंगीला तारा रंग बेरंगी छुए तारी बारी गाड़ा तारा छबीला तारा रंगीला तारा रंग बेरंगी छुए तारी बारी गाड़ा तारा छबीला तारा रंगीला तारा रंग बेरंगी छुए तारी बारी चुप चुप के तुम्हें देखा मैं करूं सारी सारी रात सारी सारी रात
छुप छुप के मुझे देखा तू कर सारी सारी रात सारी सारी रात
जाए मुझको अगर साथ तेरा तो भूलूं मैं सारा जहां गाड़ा तारा छबीला तारा रंगीला तारा बेर छुए तारी बात गाड़ा तारा छबीला तारा रंगीला तारा बेर छुए तारी बात गाड़ा तारा छबीला तारा रंगीला तारा बेर छुए तारी बात रे
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद श्रीमती रश्मि, श्रीमती राखी, श्रीमती मनीषा और श्रीमती लक्ष्मी। मैं अब आमंत्रित कर लूंगा हमारा जो आज का वर्तमान परिदृश्य है, जिसमें कि हम समझते हैं कि हम कुछ प्रगति कर पा रहे हैं, ऐसा हमारा सोचना है, लेकिन हम कितनी प्रगति कर पा रहे हैं या उस प्रगति को निरंतरता दे पा रहे हैं या नहीं, यह निर्भर करता है कि हमारे समाज की जो बेटी है उसको भी पूरा उतना जो एक तरह से मिलना चाहिए, उसको वर्चस्व वो मिलता है या नहीं। उस सब के लिए मैं बेटी के ऊपर क्या कुछ किया जा सकता है, बेटी को किस प्रकार से प्रोत्साहित किया जा सकता है, मैं अपने ही विभाग की एक बेटी को ही सौंपता हूं ये जिम्मेदारी, और मालविका जी को आमंत्रित करूंगा कि वो इस संबंध में कुछ अपने विचार रखें।
आज यहाँ मैं बेटी के ऊपर कुछ पंक्तियां सुनाना चाहूंगी। आज की बेटी। चल रही हूं मैं अपने भीतर कई भाव समेटे, घर के संस्कारों को खुद से यूं लपेटे। माँ को अब गुमान है जिस पे, पिता का बढ़ाया है मान अब जिसने, हाँ मैं वो आज की बेटी हूं। जिसके जन्म लेने की अब दुआएं की जाती हैं, जिसके जन्म लेने की अब दुआएं की जाती हैं, शिक्षित करने में उन्हें अब जान लगाई जाती है। माँ को जिसके होने से है आराम, पिता भी अब करते हैं आंखें मूंदे विश्राम, हाँ मैं वो आज की बेटी हूं। जिसकी सलाह से होने लगे हैं अब घर के सारे काम, जो हल करना सीख गई है परेशानियां तमाम, हाँ मैं वो आज की बेटी हूं। बेटे को भी अब जिसके उदाहरण दिए जाएं, बेटे को भी अब जिसके उदाहरण दिए जाएं, चहूं और नाम जो रोशन करती जाए, करे जो अब जो उसके मन भाए, हाँ मैं वो आज की बेटी हूं। अंतरिक्ष तक जिसने जमा लिए हैं अपने कदम, अंतरिक्ष तक जिसने जमा लिए हैं अपने कदम, लगी रहती है जो खुद को निखारने में हरदम, हाँ मैं वो आज की बेटी हूं। देश विदेश में जो लहराते हुए परचम, देश विदेश में जो लहराते हुए परचम बजा रही हर दिशा में डंका, और जिसकी काबिलियत पर अब नहीं होती किसी को भी शंका, हाँ मैं वो आज की बेटी हूं। अभिशाप से उठ परे, अभिशाप से उठ परे, खुद को कर साबित जो वरदान ही अब ठहरे, हाँ मैं वो आज की बेटी हूं, हाँ मैं वो आज की बेटी हूं। थैंक यू सो मच। इसी को हम आगे इस दौर को बढ़ाते हुए मैं विभाग से श्रीमान निखिल अरोड़ा जी को बुलाना चाहूंगी। उनके स्वागत में मैं 4 पंक्तियां बोलना चाहूंगी। वो बेटी पर ही एक कविता सुनाएंगे। तो एक पिता अपनी बेटी के लिए क्या अभिमान रखते हैं, क्या बोलते हैं, उसके लिए मैं बताऊंगी। रुतबा उसका क्या मैं बताऊं, जिसने पहचान मेरी बनाई है, फक्र उसे है मुझ पर लेकिन वो कभी बताता नहीं है, बापू मेरा बहुत कुछ मुझे जताता नहीं है। स्वागत करेंगे निखिल जी का।
नमस्कार मेरे आदरणीय अधिकारी, मेरे साथी और यहाँ उपस्थित सभी गणमान्य व्यक्तियों को मेरी ओर से सादर अभिनंदन। मैंने एक कविता, अलबत्ता मैं लिखता नहीं हूँ, लेकिन ये कविता मैंने 25 सितंबर 2022 डॉटर्स डे पे अपनी बेटी के लिए लिखी थी। वो मैं आपके सामने कहता हूँ, उम्मीद करता हूँ कि आपको पसंद आएगी। कविता का शीर्षक है बेटी पिता का अभिमान। बेटी पिता का अभिमान, बेटी जग का अभिमान, बेटी ईश्वर का एहसान, बेटी मांगे सारा जहान। बेटी इस जग की सबसे बड़ी नेमत है। यह ईश्वर की एक रहमत है। यह हर व्यक्ति का मान सम्मान है। इसे पूजता सारा ब्रह्मांड है। बेटी जिस घर में आती है, बेटी जिस घर में आती है, लक्ष्मी का रूप लेकर आती है। पर ए मानव, तू इस रूप का मान नहीं रखता, देवी के इस रूप की पहचान नहीं रखता, तभी तो इस जग में परेशान है। क्योंकि क्योंकि करता नहीं बेटी का तू सम्मान है। हे मानव, हे मानव, तेरी इच्छा पुत्र की रहती है। हे मानव, तेरी इच्छा पुत्र की रहती है, वंश को आगे बढ़ाने की लालसा रहती है। ये सभी के लिए है, क्योंकि सभी लोगों को पुत्र ज्यादा प्रिय होते हैं बेटियों से। हे मानव, तेरी इच्छा पुत्र की रहती है, वंश को आगे बढ़ाने की लालसा रहती है, पर मुसीबत के समय हर समय में वो बेटी ही है जो तेरे साथ खड़ी रहती है। तू मान या ना मान, तू मान या ना मान, ये ईश्वर का एहसान तुझे जग में यश दिलाएगा, अगर तू अपनी बेटी को समझ पाएगा। न सोच कि क्या खोया क्या पाया है, इस जग में तू क्या करने आया है। जो बेटी रूपी इस नारी का सम्मान करेगा, समस्त जग का यश तुझे मिलेगा। गर तू ऐसा न कर पाएगा, गर तू ऐसा ना कर पाएगा तो सदा ही दुख पाएगा। इसलिए बेटी के जन्म पर दुखी मत हो, इसे ईश्वर की रहमत मान कि बेटी ने तेरे घर में जन्म लिया है, इसे तू अपना सम्मान मान। बेटी की कद्र कर, बेटी की कद्र कर और उसे जीने का अधिकार दे, क्या पता वही बेटी तुझे भवसागर से पार दे। अंतिम पंक्तियां हैं। इसलिए ए मानव, अपनी बेटी पर गुमान कर, उसके जन्म को अपने अच्छे कर्म मानकर, इस जग में उसे मान सम्मान दिलाकर अपने ऊपर गर्व कर, अभिमान कर, कि कल को ईश्वर जब तुझसे पूछे, कि कल को जब ईश्वर जब पूछे तुझसे कि तूने क्या कमाया है, तो तू छाती चौड़ी करके कह सके कि मैंने एक बेटी को अपना गर्व बनाया है, कि मैंने एक बेटी को अपना गर्व बनाया है। धन्यवाद।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद निखिल जी। हमारे वेद मंत्रों की एक परिकल्पना है, सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्ति, माँ कश्चित् दुख भाग भवेत्। इस प्रकार की जो भावना है, वो हमारी जो संस्कृति है, वो शुरू से ही उसका पोषक रही है। और हमारा ये मानना रहा है कि यह वसुधैव कुटुंबकम की भावना के अंतर्गत हम सभी का सुख चाहते हैं, सभी की भलाई चाहते हैं, सभी का कल्याण चाहते हैं। इसी बहुत ही जिसे कहना चाहिए पवित्र भावना के साथ हमारा एक मासूम बच्चा आपके सम्मुख अपनी प्रस्तुति प्रकट करने जा रहा है, और उसका भी ये मानना है कि इस प्रकार के हम विश्व की ओर ले चलें, सबको ले चलें, जहां की कभी कोई गम ना हो, जहां कभी कोई दुख ना हो। मैं आमंत्रित करना चाहूंगा रेयांश को, मास्टर रेयांश, और तालियों के साथ स्वागत कीजिए बच्चे का उत्साहवर्धन करने के लिए। वो आपको एक ऐसे जहां में ले जाना चाहेगा जहां की किसी प्रकार का दुख ना हो। रेयांश।
Hi guys, I'm Riyansh. Fans call me Ray. I'm a YouTuber, a model, actor, singer, a music player, and a very handsome model. Here's a song, sing with me. आ चल के तुझे मैं लेके चलूं एक ऐसी गगन के तले, जहाँ गम भी ना हो, आंसू भी ना हो, बस प्यार प्यार भले। एक ऐसी गगन के तले, सूरज की पहली किरण से आशा का सवेरा जागे, चंदा की किरण से खुलकर घनघोर अंधेरा भागे। कहीं धूप खिले, कहीं छाँव मिले, लंबी सी डगर ना खले, जहाँ गम भी ना हो, आंसू भी ना हो, बस प्यार ही प्यार भले। एक ऐसी गगन के तले। एक हिंदी फिल्म की लाइन सुनाता हूँ। You tell the name of the actor and I'll the chocolate from you. मेरे मन में एक बात आई है कम्मू जी, शिव जी की कृपा हुई तो एक छोटा सा लल्ला होगा मेरा कम्मू जी, और उसका नाम मैं रखूंगा श्री गंगा प्रसाद। कम्मो जी, आप में उस लल्ले की माँ बनेंगे। आप एक ही लल्ले का सुनकर फिक्र ना करें कम्मो जी। अगर शिव जी ने चाहा तो लल्लों की लाइन लग जाएगी। This is a famous proposal dialogue by Raj Kapoor sir from the movie जिस देश में गंगा बहती है। I know you have liked my performance, तो तालियां बजाओ दोस्तों।
बच्चे के उत्साहवर्धन के लिए आप सभी का धन्यवाद और आदरणीय सुचिता मैम का भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद जिन्होंने कि अपने नाती में इस प्रकार के संस्कार डलवाए जो कि वो हमको एक ऐसी अच्छी अद्भुत दुनिया की ओर ले जाना चाहता है जहाँ की गम ना हो, खुशियां ही खुशियां हो। एक बार फिर रुक करता हूं मैं अपने वेद मंत्रों की ओर जो कि हमारा जैसे कहना चाहिए हमारा एक तरह से मार्गदर्शन करते हैं कदम कदम पर। हमारे वेद मंत्रों में कहा गया है सहना ववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सहवीर्यम करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मां विद्विषावहै। अर्थात हम साथ साथ चलें, साथ साथ हम आगे बढ़ें, साथ साथ हम अपना कार्य कौशल बढ़ाएं और हम सब में अगर कभी किसी प्रकार का मतांतर होता भी है तो हमारे अंदर कभी भी मनभेद ना हो, मतभेद बेशक हो लेकिन मनभेद ना हो। हमारे इस प्रकार के वेद मंत्रों में एक अंतर्निहित जो भावना है वो ये है कि हमारे अंदर एक फ्रेटर्निटी, एक सेंस ऑफ फ्रेंडशिप, फ्रेटर्निटी वो हमेशा रहे। तो उसी दोस्ती, उसी मित्रता को कायम रखते हुए, उस भावना को आगे बढ़ाते हुए मैं अपने विभाग के एक और कर्मचारी, अपने सहयोगी श्री एलेक्स को आमंत्रित करना चाहूंगा कि वो उस जो ये कड़ी है जो वेद मंत्रों से शुरू हुई है और बाद में जाकर जिसकी अवधारणा को बॉलीवुड ने आगे बढ़ाया, उस कड़ी में वो इस गीत को प्रस्तुत करें और गीत से आप समझ जाएंगे कि जो आपसी मित्रता प्रेम भाव है उसको कैसे बढ़ाया जाए। श्री एलेक्स।
सर। हेलो। बने चाहे दुश्मन जमाना हमारा, बने चाहे दुश्मन जमाना हमारा, सलामत रहे दोस्ताना हमारा। बने चाहे दुश्मन जमाना हमारा, सलामत रहे दोस्ताना हमारा, सलामत रहे दोस्ताना हमारा। बने चाहे दुश्मन जमाना हमारा, सलामत रहे दोस्ताना हमारा। वो ख्वाबों के दिन, वो किताबों के दिन, वो ख्वाबों के दिन, वो किताबों के दिन, सवालों की रातें जवाबों के दिन। कई साल हमने गुजारे यहाँ, यही साथ खेले हुए हम जवान, हुए हम जवान। था बचपन बड़ा आशिकाना हमारा, सलामत रहे दोस्ताना हमारा, बने चाहे दुश्मन जमाना हमारा, सलामत रहे दोस्ताना हमारा। ना बिछड़ेंगे मर के भी हम दोस्तों, ना बिछड़ेंगे मर के भी हम दोस्तों, हमें दोस्ती की कसम दोस्तों। पता कोई पूछे तो कहते हैं हम, एक दूसरे के दिल में रहते हैं हम, रहते हैं हम, नहीं और कोई ठिकाना हमारा, सलामत रहे दोस्ताना हमारा, बने चाहे दुश्मन जमाना हमारा, सलामत रहे दोस्ताना हमारा, सलामत रहे दोस्ताना हमारा, बने चाहे दुश्मन जमाना हमारा, सलामत रहे दोस्ताना हमारा।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद एलेक्स जी। एक उल्लास का माहौल तैयार कर दिया है एलेक्स जी ने। तो इसी उल्लास के माहौल में मैं चाहता हूं कि उस माहौल को डॉक्टर रिची महाजन और आगे बढ़ा कर ले जाएं, और उन्होंने क्या कुछ सोच रखा है ये जानते हैं उन्हीं से ही।
So don't clap for me, you're going to clap for yourself actually. Okay, so we're going to have a group activity because Honorable Secretary actually wanted everybody in the audience to participate. So we're going to have a group activity. So right now to start with, I'll request Under Secretary and above level officers to please come up on the stage. Please, I'll Vashne, Amit, everybody, please. Even from IFD, where's Narayan? He's missing. Sir, please, I mean, I request, please, sir. Aye, sir. Everybody. Please, ma'am, please come up on the stage, sir. Please come up on the stage. It's actually, planned. Please, sir. Jyoti, ma'am, Rajni, sir, please come up on the stage. Manoj, sir. Garima, ma'am, I can see her in the back. Where is she? Please, Manoj ji, Hans, Palayan, sir, please come up on the stage. Akshat, you can also join. Come. Everybody, please. Kamakshi, Sumita, where are you people? Rajesh, what do you want me to do? Like send mails? Rajni, sir, third reminder to you. Sir, please come up on the stage. Ma'am, please. Please, ma'am, join. Manoj, sir, please. Sir, please come up on the stage. Gandhi, ma'am, you can also join, please. Where are you hiding? Please, ma'am, please come back. You can also join, please. It's okay. Yep, you are extended family of DBT. Sir, you are only left, please. Please. Are sir, aa jaiye na, 2 minute ki baat hai. And we'll also have Dr. Vishesh, since he's been working with me throughout. Please come up on the stage. Please come up on the stage. aa jaiye na. Are? So the activity is very simple. All the men's are 5, and we very few lady representatives. I need some more. Ma'am, you please come on the stage. Director, ma'am. Need some more lady representatives actually. Yeah, Kamakshi and Sumit and Leah, please come this side. So men, please shift to that side. Ladies, please this side. So all the men are 5. Okay. All the men are 5 and all the ladies are 10. So I'll say out a number. You have to form a group. Whosoever is left out is out of the game. So for example, if I say 25, it could be group of 5 men. It could be group of 2 ladies, 1 man. It could be group of 1 lady, 3 men. So you have to make a group. And, whosoever goes, is left out and leaves the stage. Okay. मैम अब तो यूसीएस ही रह गया भरने वाला नहीं that is the game actually. It's a group activity. It's all about team binding and yeah. नहीं गिरूंगा मैम. So the first number is, okay, you got 10 seconds for making every group, okay? So the first number is 55. Uh-huh. 55. Practicals में आओ. 11 लोग चाहिए ना. We have consolation prizes for this. Just to announce. We have consolation prizes for this. You did not consider the ladies. That's so tough. 55. So Karthik, you are out. So Kamakshi, you are also out. You may please leave the stage. Okay, make it 25. Go back to you two. 25. How much is it? Who's out? Sir, कौन? अच्छा. जिसको, yeah. Okay. 40. हो गया 40. Okay, 4 of you gets eliminated. Please leave the dice. So we'll have next number from Mishra.
15.
Dhananjay sir, next number. 10 and 5s cannot be there. At least it has to be multiple of 5 above 10. 30. Okay. 45. Twenty. The call is 15 again. Now the trickiest one, 20. So they are the winners. Can I have a clap for them? Back to Arvind ji.
हिंदी साहित्य में जो नवरस कहे गए हैं उनमें एक रस है हास्य रस, और हास परिहास को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए मैं अनुरोध कर लूंगा अपनी सहकर्मी मालविका जी को।
मैं 4 लाइनों से एक शुरुआत करूंगी, उसके बाद विशाल जी को आमंत्रित करूंगी, वो हास्य कविता पेश करेंगे। ख्वाहिशें तो बहुत हैं मगर पूरी हों तब कुछ बात है, राह में आएंगी मुश्किलें हजार, उन्हें हटाकर आगे बढ़ते जाएं तब कुछ बात है। चलते रहना नाम है जिंदगी, रुकने न पाए हम तब कुछ बात है। इसी के साथ स्वागत करेंगे विशाल जी का, जो हास्य कविता सुनाएंगे और माहौल का अच्छा बनाएंगे।
का शीर्षक है बूंदाबांदी। कि हमारे घर देर से पहुंचने पर बीवी इतनी जोर की भड़की गुरु, हम समझ गए बरसात होने वाली है शुरू। जो गरजते नहीं बरसते हैं वाला मुहावरा जिन लोगों ने बाजार में फेंका है, उन्होंने हमारी बीवी को नहीं देखा है। जो गरजते हैं बरसते नहीं वाला मुहावरा जिन लोगों ने बाजार में फेंका है, उन्होंने मेरी बीवी को नहीं देखा है। बदलते हर मौसम का अंदाज तो उसके चेहरे से लग जाता है, आने वाले तूफान का पता तो उसकी आंखों से ही चल जाता है। उस दिन भी आंखों से ऐसे ही संकेत उभर कर सामने आ रहे थे और हम बचने के लिए बहानों की छतरी अपना रहे थे। पर हवा के थपेड़े स्त्री को तार तार कर रहे थे, हम पर चौतरफा वार कर रहे थे। बिजली अचानक जोर से कड़की, कौन थी वो लड़की? बिजली अचानक जोर से कड़की, कौन थी वो लड़की? हमने कहा कहाँ लड़की, कौन लड़की? बताया तो ऑफिस में काम ज्यादा है, आजकल ऑफिस में ऑडिट आया है। पत्नी बोली फिर कितने पैसे मिल जाएंगे इस वर्किंग टाइम के? क्या रेट है तुम्हारे यहाँ ओवर टाइम के? उस पैसे से हमें एक आध नई साड़ी दिलाओ, वरना कोई और बहाना बनाओ। मैंने कहा सच है ये बहाना नहीं। वो बोली जाने दो कि इतने सालों में हमने तुम्हें जाना नहीं। वो बोली जाने दो कि इतने सालों में हमने तुम्हें जाना नहीं। अब की बादल गरजे तो दोस्तों पे हो रहे थे खर्चे। महफिल जमाई होगी पूरे महीने की तनख्वाह एक दिन में उड़ाई होगी। महफिल जमाई होगी पूरे महीने की तनख्वाह एक दिन में जो उड़ाई होगी। मैंने कहा तनख्वाह खत्म हुए तो हफ्ता बीत गया, पैसों का कटोरा तो कब का रीत गया। अब की घुमड़ी घटाएं तो हम बताएं, ले दे के रह जाता है ना सिनेमा। आज कौन सा टॉकीज घूम लिया, बच्चों की किस फरमाइश का खून किया। आज कौन सा टॉकीज घूम लिया, बच्चों की किस फरमाइश का खून किया। मैंने कहा माना कि थोड़ी देर ज्यादा हो गई है, पर इतनी भी नहीं कि बात का बतंगड़ बनाओ। एक छोटे से अपराध पे दाना पानी लेके चढ़ जाओ। अरे मैं तुम्हारे और बच्चों के ही ख्वाब सजाने की सजा पा रहा हूँ। जिस देर से आने को तुम मेरी अय्याशी समझ रही हो, मैं उस वक्त में भी 4 पैसे कमा रहा हूँ। मैं उस वक्त में भी 4 पैसे कमा रहा हूँ। कुछ महीना बच्चों को पढ़ाया है तो आज का दिन आया है। लेके आया हूँ आपके लिए दवाई, बच्चों के लिए किताब, और आप समझ रही हो लड़की, सिनेमा, ताश और शराब। अब थम चुकी थी आंधी और शुरू होने वाली थी बूंदाबांदी। अब थम चुकी थी आंधी, शुरू होने वाली थी बूंदाबांदी। माफ कर दो पत्नी बोली, हमने बेकार तुम पे शक किया। पर क्या बताएं ये महीना हमने कैसे जिया। तुम्हारा देर से आना सवाल उठा रहा था, मन में न जाने कैसे कैसे बवाल उठा रहा था। हमारे चारों ओर बनने लगा था कम हवा का दबाव, गजब था बादलों का जमाव। पत्नी बोली इस कठिन दौर में पति भी दूर हो जाए और मन में एक विचार भी ना आए, अभी हम इतने एडवांस नहीं हुए हैं। अभी हम इतने एडवांस नहीं हुए हैं, भौतिकता ने भावना के पंख इतने नहीं छुए हैं। अरे हम जी लेंगे थोड़े अभाव में, थोड़ी सी जान बची रहने दो प्यार के भाव में। ये कह के गले लग गई और उसकी एक आंख दवाई, दूसरी किताब पर आंख थी, आंख पे सॉरी उसकी एक आंख दवाई और एक आंख किताब पर थी। मेरी कमीज और उसका आंचल दोनों भीग रहे थे। बारिश पूरे शबाब पर थी। बारिश पूरे शबाब पर थी। थैंक यू।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद विशाल जी। मैं एक बात बताना चाहूंगा कि विशाल बीच में भूले नहीं थे। वो असल में आपको हंसाना चाह रहे थे, तो इसलिए उन्होंने मुझे बता दिया था कि मैं बीच में ऐसे भूलने की एक्टिंग करूंगा तो सबके सब हंसेंगे तो मेरा मकसद सिद्ध हो जाएगा। तो वो अपने मकसद में पूरी तरह से सिद्ध हुए, इसलिए मैं उनका हार्दिक धन्यवाद करता हूं। इसी जो हंसी का माहौल है, इसी जो उल्लास का माहौल है, इसको और आगे बढ़ाते हुए मैं एलेक्स जी से निवेदन करूंगा कि वो करूंगा एक ऐसा झूमने वाला नृत्य प्रस्तुत कर दें आपके सम्मुख, जो कि सभी अचंभित होकर खाली देखते ही रह जाएं। एलेक्स जी।
अरे भंग का रंग जमा हो चकाचक,
सभी
फिर लो पान चबा। आहा, अरे ऐसा झटका लगे जिया पे पुनर्जन्म हो जाए। चबा खई के पान बनारस वाला, अरे ऐ के पान बनारस वाला, खुल जाए बंद अकल का ताला। ओ खई के पान अरे भंग का रंग जमा हो चकाचक, फिर लो पान चबाए। आहा, अरे ऐसा झटका लगे जिया पे पुनर्जन्म हो जाए। ओ खई के पान बनारस वाला, ओ खई के पान बनारस वाला, खुल जाए बंद अकल का ताला। ओ खई के पान बनारस वाला, खुल जाए बंद अकल का ताला। फिर तो ऐसा करे धमाल, सीधी कर दे सबकी छाल। ओ छोरा गंगा किनारे वाला, ओ छोरा गंगा किनारे वाला, पान बनारस वाला, खुल जाए बंद अकल का ताला। अरे राम दुहाई, कैसे चक्कर में पड़ गया। आए आए हाय, कहाँ जान फसाई, मैं तो सूली पे चढ़ गया। आए आए, कैसा सीधा साधा, मैं कैसा भोला भाला। कैसा सीधा साधा, मैं कैसा भोला भाला। जाने कौन घड़ी में पड़ गया पढ़े लिखों से पाला। मीठी छुरी से हुआ हलाक। छोरा गंगा किनारे वाला, छोरा गंगा किनारे वाला, ओ सही के पान बनाओ रत वाला, खुल जाए बंद अकल का ताला। ओ नाचा, हमरा संग नाचा, हो नाचा। एक कन्याकुमारी हमरी सूरत मर गई। आए आए आए, एक मीठी कटारी हमरे दिल में उतर गई। आए आए, कैसी गोरी गोरी तीखी तीखी छोरी बाबा, कैसी गोरी गोरी तीखी तीखी छोरी करके जोरा जोरी कर गई हमरे दिल की चोरी। मिली छोरी तो हुआ निहाल। छोरा गंगा किनारे वाला, छोरा गंगा किनारे वाला। खैके पान बनारस वाला, खुल जाए बंद अकल का ताला। खैके पान बनारस वाला, खुल जाए बंद अकल का ताला। फिर तो वैसा करे कमाल, सीधी कर दे सबकी चाल। ओ छोरा गंगा किनारे वाला, ओ छोरा गंगा किनारे वाला, ओ छोरा गंगा किनारे वाला।
बहुत शानदार। एलेक्स को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। मुझे लगता है इस शानदार प्रस्तुति के बाद मैं समस्त भगवान देवी देवताओं से उनसे निवेदन करके थोड़ा सा विष्णु पुराण की वो जो पंक्तियां उसको कुछ संशोधित करना चाहूंगा कि उसमें कहते हैं कि गायंती देवः किल गीतकानि धन्यास्तुते, भारत की जगह डीबीटी भूमि भागे। जो डीबीटी ऐसा है जहाँ के लिए कि देवता भी तरसेंगे। एक एक तरह से जो वाइब्रेंट जो यहाँ का कल्चर है, जो लोगों का आपसी जुड़ाव है, जो यहाँ के प्रस्तुतिकरण है सब लोगों का, वो शानदार है। तो इसलिए इन पंक्तियों को इस तरह से संशोधित करना चाहूंगा। हमारा देश और हमारा विभाग सब वो एक ऐसा अनोखा संगम है जहाँ की ये कवि की पंक्तियां सार्थक सिद्ध होती हैं कि अरुण यह मधुमय देश हमारा, जहां पहुंच अनजान क्षितिज को मिलता एक सहारा। ये कैसा देश है हमारा, ये बताने के लिए मैं एक और नन्हे कलाकार को आमंत्रित करना चाहूंगा। स्वागत कीजिए तालियों की गड़गड़ाहट के साथ हमारे मास्टर मनुमय का, जो कि डॉक्टर कार्तिकेयन के सुपुत्र हैं और आपको ये बताना चाहेंगे कि ये किस प्रकार का देश है, इतना अद्भुत देश है, इतनी अद्भुत सांस्कृतिक विरासत का देश है। मनुमय।
कट सुनहरी अंबर नीला, ओ कट सुनहरी अंबर नीला, हर मौसम रंगीला। ऐसा मेरा ओ ऐसा देश है मेरा, ऐसा देश है मेरा, हाँ ऐसा देश है मेरा। बोल पपीहा कोयल गाए, ओ बोल पपीहा कोयल गाए, कावड़ गिर के आए। ऐसा देश है मेरा, ओ ऐसा देश है मेरा, ऐसा देश है मेरा, हाँ ऐसा देश है मेरा। पाप के कंधे करके ना बच्चे देखे मेले, मेलों में नच के तमाशे, कुल्फी के चाट अकेले। कहीं मिलती मीठी बोली, कहीं चूरन की है पुड़िया, बोले बोले कच्चे हैं जैसे कुत्ते और गुड़िया। अरे रोज सुनाए दादी नानी, ओ रोज सुनाए दादी नानी, एक परियों की कहानी। ऐसा देश है मेरा, ओ ऐसा देश है मेरा, ऐसा देश है मेरा, हाँ ऐसा देश है मेरा। जवान। जय जवान, जय किसान, जय अनुसंधान।
कार हूँ, अपनी कला जानता हूँ, कहाँ सुनता हूँ, बस दिल की ही मानता हूँ। गर्व है मुझे अपनी विरासत पे, कुछ और नहीं आपकी तारीफें मांगता हूँ। इसी के साथ में सुभाष कुमार जी एक प्रेम गीत प्रस्तुत करेंगे। उससे पहले सुभाष कुमार जी के लिए 4 लाइनों से मैं उनकी भूमिका बांध देती हूँ। खूबसूरत हो आप, पता है हमें, यूं मुस्कुरा के दिल हमारा जलाया ना करो। खूबसूरत हो आप, अजी हाँ, पता है हमें, शर्मा के यूं इतराया ना करो। कायल हो गए हैं जनाब आपके, कायल हो गए हैं जनाब आपके, रहने दो हमें भी जिंदा मोहतरमा, जीते जी यूं मारने सामने आया ना करो। सुभाष जी का स्वागत है।
नमस्कार सर जी, सभी डीबीटी के अफसरों को मेरा तरफ से नमस्कार सर। म्यूजिक दे दीजिएगा, रुक जाए थोड़ा सा। आने से उसके आए बहार, जाने से उसके जाए बहार। बड़ी मस्तानी है मेरे महबूबा, मेरी जिंदगानी है मेरे महबूबा। आने से उसके आए बहार, जाने से उसके जाए बहार। बड़ी मस्तानी है मेरे महबूबा, मेरी जिंदगानी है मेरे महबूबा। गुनगुनाए ऐसे जैसे बजता हो घुंघरू कहीं पे, आके पर्वतों से जैसे गिरता हो झरना जमीन पे। झरनों की मौज है वो, मौजों की रवानी है मेरे महबूबा, मेरी जिंदगानी है मेरे महबूबा। पन सवर के निकले आए सावन का जब जब महीना हर कोई ये समझे होगी वो कोई चंचल हसीना पूछे तो कौन है वो रुत ये सुहानी है मेरे महबूबा मेरी जिंदगानी है मेरे महबूबा महबूबा बड़ी मस्तानी है मेरे महबूबा
बहुत अच्छा सुभाष जी, थैंक यू सो मच। ये बहुत मधुरमय गीत गा के इन्होंने समा बांध दिया है। इसी के साथ में हम एक ग्रुप डांस के लिए बुलाना चाहेंगे। उससे पहले कि 4 लड़कियां यहाँ पे हमारे डिपार्टमेंट से ही वो डांस परफॉर्मेंस पेश करेंगी, उससे पहले मैं कुछ लड़कियों की खूबसूरती के ऊपर 4 लाइनें बोलकर उनका स्वागत करना चाहूंगी। बारिश की बूंदों की भीनी भीनी खुशबू सी लगती है वो, सर्द हवाओं की ठंडी ठिठुरन सी लगती है वो, माथे की दमकती बिंदी सी लगती है वो, छन छन करती पायल की झनकार सी लगती है वो, उफ इस शहर की लड़की क्या कमाल लगती है वो। इसी के साथ मैं स्वागत करूंगी गीता, भावना, अमनदीप और स्मृति का ग्रुप डांस परफॉर्मेंस के लिए।
हेलो झमाझम नाच आजे दम ढोल बाजे नॉन स्टॉप हल्ला मचेगा ओए नाचो सारे पापा पापा पीपली पे आजा नया स्टेप सीखे नॉन स्टॉप हल्ला मचेगा ओए नाचो सारे अपनी फेमस है रात वाली यारियां जाने सारा जहां बेथलपुर सुन ले ओ छोरिया चूमे नगरिया जब जब ये घूमे कमरिया तारी कमरिया कमरिया तारी कमरिया बेथलपुर सुन ले ओ छोरिया चूमे नगरिया जब जब ये घूमे कमरिया तारी कमरिया
Yeah.
Slow it down. कि तेरे संग यार आया खिलड़ने लगी खिलड़ लड़ के आगे बढ़ने लगी एक तेरे संग यार खिलड़ने लगी खिलड़ लड़ के आगे बढ़ने लगी ओ तेरे दिल के इशारे ये तो पढ़ने लगी खिलड़ लड़ के आगे बढ़ने लगी ओ मुंडा सिर पे अड़ा पीछे पड़ा ओ मुंडा सिर पे अड़ा पीछे पड़ा मेरे लाड़ कर ले जरा दिल देना दिल लेना दिल देना दिल लेना ऐसा
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। अब इसके बाद एक आपको अनोखी प्रस्तुति आपके सामने रखने जा रहे हैं हमारे श्री एलेक्स, श्री विशाल, श्री संजय सिंह, श्री संजय गुप्ता, श्री धर्मेंद्र और उनके श्री उमेश। ये 6 सदस्य एक अद्भुत नृत्य आपके सामने प्रस्तुत करेंगे। आपको पहचानना होगा कि ये क्या नृत्य है। मैं आमंत्रित करूंगा एलेक्स एंड अदर पार्टनर्स।
लिखे जो खत तुझे वो तेरी याद में हजारों रंग के नजारे बन गए। लिखे जो खत तुझे वो तेरी याद में हजारों रंग के नजारे बन गए। सवेरा जब हुआ तो फूल बन गए, जो रात आई तो सितारे बन गए।
कबूतर जा जा जा, कबूतर जा जा जा, कबूतर जा जा जा, कबूतर जा जा जा। पहले प्यार की पहली चिट्ठी, पहले प्यार की पहली चिट्ठी साजन को दिया। कबूतर जा जा जा, कबूतर जा जा जा, कबूतर जा जा जा, कबूतर जा।
हमको तुझसे प्यार है, पिया बेकरार है, आजा मेरी बुलबुल, तेरा इंतजार है। हमको तुझसे प्यार है, पिया बेकरार है, आजा मेरी बुलबुल।
तुम्हें अपना बनाने की कसम खाई है। तुम्हें अपना बनाने की कसम खाई है। तेरी आंखों में चाहत ही नजर आई है।
वो मेरी नींद मेरा चैन मुझे लौटा दो, वो मेरी नींद मेरा चैन मुझे लौटा दो, वो मेरा प्यार
चैन जितना भी मेरे पहला नशा पहला खुमार नया प्यार है नया इंतजार कर लूं मैं क्या अपना हाल ऐ दिले बेकरार मेरे दिले बेकरार तू ही बता तुम इतना जो मुस्कुरा रहे हो क्या गम है जिसको छुपा रहे हो क्या गम है जिसको छुपा रहे हो तुम इतना जो मुस्कुरा अपने जिगर को थाम के बैठो अपने जिगर को अपने जिगर को थाम के बैठो थाम के बैठो थाम के बैठोगे आधी कमरिया से सारे के आई मंडी की बारी रे आधी कमरिया से सारी के आई अब मंडी की बारी।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद एलेक्स और उनके सहयोगियों को इस शानदार डम डांस प्रस्तुति के लिए। अब मैं आमंत्रित करना चाहूंगा हमारे विभाग के डॉक्टर कार्तिकेयन और डॉक्टर राजेश गंगल जी को जो कि एक बहुत ही भावपूर्ण गीत प्रस्तुत करने जा रहे हैं। क्या गीत है आप सुनिएगा पूरी भावनाओं के साथ। और जैसा मैंने कहा पहले भी कि जो हिंदी साहित्य है उसमें नव रसों में जो एक करुणा रस है उसका बहुत ही अच्छा प्रतिबिंब इस गीत में झलकता है।
ये गीत सभी बच्चों को डेडिकेटेड है और बच्चा वो जो कि पैदा होता है और बच्चा वो भी जो कभी बड़ा नहीं होता है, तो ये सभी बच्चों को डेडिकेटेड है।
देखो ओसी की बूंदें पत्तों की गोद में आसमां से कूदे अंगड़ाई ले फिर करवट बदल कर नाजुक से मोती हंसते फिसल कर हो न जाए तारे जमीन पर। ये तो है सर्दी में धूप की किरणें उतरे जो आंगन को सुनहरा सा करने मन के अंधेरों को रोशन सा कर दे ठिठुरती हथेली की रंगत बदलने हो न जाए ये तारे जमीन पर। जैसे आंखों के डिबिया में निंदिया और निंदियों में मीठा सा सपना, और सपने में मिल जाए फरिश्ता सा कोई, जैसे रंग भरी पिचकारी, जैसे तितलियां फूलों की क्यारी, जैसे बिना मतलब का प्यारा रिश्ता हो कोई। ये तो आशा की लहर है, ये तो उम्मीद की सहर है, खुशियों की नहर है, खो न जाए तारे ज़मीन पर। तो रात के सीने पे ये तो झिलमिल किसी लो से उगे हैं, ये तो अंबियों की खुशबू है बादलों से बह चले, जैसे कांच के चूड़ी के टुकड़े, जैसे खिले खिले फूलों पे मुखड़े, जैसे बंसी कोई बजाए पेड़ों के तले, ये फूलों के पवन के है ये घुंघरू जीवन के, ये तो सुर है चमन के, हो न जाए ये तारे ज़मीन पर। मोहल्ले की रौनक गलियां हैं जैसे, खिलने की जिद पर गलियां हैं जैसे, मुट्ठी के मौसम की जैसे हवाएं, ये है बुजुर्गों के दिल की दुआएं, हो न जाए ये तारे ज़मीन पर। थैंक यू।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद डॉक्टर कार्तिकेयन और डॉक्टर राजेश गंगल जी का। हमारे विभाग के इस 38वें स्थापना दिवस सभी लोगों से एक फरमाइश आई है कि कुछ लोग अति उत्साहित हैं और वो अपने उत्साह का जो कहना चाहिए कि अपने एक नृत्य के द्वारा उस उत्साह को प्रकट करना चाहते हैं। तो मैं ऐसे सभी अपने उत्साहित अपने सहयोगियों को आमंत्रित करना चाहूँगा जो इस समय बिना किसी तैयारी के भी, वो एक निश्चित तौर पर एक बड़े कलाकार की निशानी होती है कि बिना किसी तैयारी के भी अगर वो यहाँ पर एक सुंदर प्रस्तुति प्रस्तुत करना चाहते हैं तो निश्चित ही उनका स्वागत है। मैं अपने ऐसे सभी सहकर्मियों को, अपने अधिकारियों से निवेदन करना चाहूँगा कि वो मंच पर आकर और इस प्रकार का